Ladies and gentlemen, it's the halfway point of the season, which means it's time to go all-star racing at the Charlotte Motor Speedway here for the G-Force Sim Racing Series, the Hijinx Clothing Company 87 League. Getting ready here tonight, not only for the all-star race, but we have qualifying races here in the showdown to find out which 6 drivers will be moving on to join those that are already locked into the main event. I'm Seth Cole alongside of Samuel Dyer. And Sam, we were watching these guys in practice. It's very typical of what we've seen week after week, the slipping and sliding, but there's no points on the line. There is pride and purse, however.
There's no points, like you said, pride and purse. Also, something that these drivers don't have as well is there's no fast repair. Once you wreck out of this race, you're done, and no tires for you to work with. So for these 40 laps in this show match, you're stuck with them. So it's all about either pushing it to finish in the top 3 here in the first 20 laps, or save it for the final.
We're going to be observing up here in the booth, but a guy that's going to be experienced at all in the All-Star race. He's already locked in, but joined us here for the showdown, our fellow broadcast colleague, Tyler Riggs. Tyler, welcome.
Hey, fellas, how you doing?
Well, we're doing good, but I'm a little worried for you. I mean, you're going to have to deal with the All-Star race here, and you have to see what these drivers having to deal with. I mean, first off, I got to wonder, is it maybe a little bit more pressure having to kind of sit back and wait for the All-Star race rather than just get out there and figure out what these cars are going to do?
It definitely makes you a little bit antsy, especially, the practice was 30 minutes. Usually these guys get an hour or so to practice. So when that factors in, you just got to take notes in this type of session. You know, you'll have your shot later, but you got to see what some guys do well and what some guys don't do well.
We got 9 drivers that are going to be battling for 6 spots. 20 laps in the first segment. Top 3 from that segment will move on. They will actually continue to take part in the second segment, and then the top 3 finishers that had not advanced in the first segment will advance after the completion of the second 20-lap stage. 6 drivers in total will make the All-Star race. 3 of them will not. And the thing I've got to wonder here, Sam, is you mentioned already the point of the 2 different rules that came into tonight. Number 1, these drivers cannot come to pit road to get their damage repaired. They cannot do that. As I said, we're going to be having all 9 drivers running out there potentially for these full 40 laps. How aggressive do you think we're going to see the racing early on?
I think for these first couple of laps, you're going to tell who is trying to be in the top 3 for the first stage and who's saving. And probably the first about 5 to 10 laps, you're going to see who's going to drop back and just relax for a moment. And then there's going to be drivers that are going to be hard pushing to get up there in these first 20 or so laps.
Saw Rocky Boyd right there doing a bit of a burnout under pacing. Tyler, is he warming up those tires, trying to see if he can have a little bit more grip going into turn 1?
That very aggressive and very daring by Rocky, considering that you do not get to replace tires in the showdown, Seth. That is it's not a strategy I would take. I'm not gonna lie. It looks like he said maybe his throttle just stuck. So yeah, you don't want to be burning off rubber sooner than you have to in these old cars.
Of course, Sam, we've got. Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, with him burning down his tires already with that little burnout that he had, it's kind of putting him in a must win in the first stage at that point where he's already got the pole, so might as well be up front and win this first stage.
It's going to be interesting, too, because out of these 9 drivers, we're very familiar with 7 of them taking part in races during the course of the season. But Rocky Boyd's making his first start here tonight in a non-points event, and so, too, is the 15 of Jonathan Mitchum. So it'll be interesting to see... since these are a couple of guys that maybe some of these drivers in the field are not really familiar with their racing style, how it's going to come into play, especially here in this first 20-lap segment. Caution laps will not count here tonight as well, so we will run 20 green flag laps in the first stage, and we're underway in the showdown.
That inside line got to take off, but the outside line kind of got stuck where they were at. Moving on back, and now you got Rocky Boyd and Dallas Myhan leading the pack with the 07 and 3rd.
Be Ron Capps and Nicholas Weatherby that are going to be side by side going in through turns 1 and 2. And I got to ask you, Tyler, I mean, based on the fact of we've seen these drivers slipping and sliding around in practice, I mean, how difficult is it going to be able to hold these cars too wide?
Oh, and there's a first
caution back.
I was going to say it's going to be very difficult, Seth, because, I mean, these things are loose as is by themselves. They got more mechanical grip than aero, but there is just enough aero there where you get side by side with somebody, you definitely feel it.
Caution out, as you said, Sam, there. First lap, first yellow. Todd Eldridge with a problem over in what looked like turn 3.
Yeah, he kind of came in with too much head of steam and was not able to whoa up, tried to make the outside line work, got close to the outside wall and bounced right off of it, spinning that machine around. The first contact didn't look bad. It's when he backed into the outside wall again where he got most of his rear end and a lot more of a left side damage.
I was wondering how this was going to translate over to the race because I was watching Eldridge in practice, and he seemed to be one of the few cars that really could not get his car to go down to that white line on the bottom, kept taking a higher approach into the corner, and usually when you take that higher line, you carry too much speed. It doesn't take long for you to get up to that outside wall.
Absolutely not. I mean, Tyler, I know you've been practicing here with the 30-minute practice that we had before this race started. I mean, how difficult is it to get down to that white line?
Oh, it's difficult. You got to really be patient with it, much longer than you think you have to be. And once you get it, though, it starts kind of sticking well. But Seth, you mentioned when that thing just starts sliding up, you're not really bringing it back down. So unfortunately, we saw that with Todd there.
How much do you think the sense of urgency is for guys that are maybe back there, 3rd place Dallas Myhan, 4th place Weatherby, 5th place Ron Capps, to make sure that they are going to transfer here in this first stage, knowing that they could have, even with the fact that the caution laps are not counted, they could have maybe somewhere upwards of 30, 35 laps on their tires for that second stage.
Yeah, I mean, there's a little bit of pressure for these drivers, but I mean, for this first stage, a lot of the guys are trying to lock in early so they don't have to worry about if a caution comes out and they get caught up in it. But if you're able to stay for all 40 laps, by the end of this thing, if you see our top 3 that won stage 1, win stage 3 again, it's then the next 3 after that get pulled into the all-star race. So if you're running around 4th and 5th, it's about more so of just keeping pace, saving your tires for later on, and if you're close enough, maybe make that push to the end.
Obviously, the 96 of Todd Eldridge cannot come to pit road. He cannot take on tires after that spin. He cannot repair that damage. And Tyler, from a driver's standpoint of view, Sam and I have documented that a big reason why you guys, when you're at these racetracks, whether it be Talladega, whether it be here at Charlotte, Atlanta, Rockingham, we see you guys sliding into the corners because of just how low that spoiler is. He made contact with the rear end of that car, which may end up taking that spoiler completely out of the picture. There's going to be nothing to hold that car down going into the corners now.
Nah, it's going to be more of a handful for sure. And it's, especially in these 87 cars, they're tough, but once they start really taking some key damage, it just makes whatever condition you're feeling, whether it's loose, tight, it just makes it worse. So it's going to be interesting to see how Todd tries to adapt to that. He's definitely going to have to take a couple laps to get used to it if he's going to keep it straight. But yeah, it's not a spot you want to be this early in the showdown.
Of course, I think this is the second D-shaped mile-and-a-half track that we have been at this season. The only prior one was Atlanta, where we saw Jake Hounshaw go to victory lane, and you, Tyler, sat on the pole position. When you were out there during practice, is there some similarities between Atlanta and Charlotte, or is there a difference just based on the temperature that you're having to deal with here tonight as opposed to when you were down in Georgia?
Really, the only difference, Seth, I think, is going to be the fact that here you're not going to have that much of an outside lane to work with. Atlanta, there was definitely a little bit more option to work with in terms of moving up the track to find bits of grip. But here, you really got to just stick it down low. And if you're going to try to run that top, it's going to get sketchy unless you really know what you're doing.
As you can see up there on the top left, we only have 1 lap completed because that was run under green. All these caution laps not counting. So when we go back green, there will be 19 laps left in the stage. And when we get to the completion of lap 20, I think around the midway point of lap 20, there will be an admin thrown caution to complete the first stage of this showdown. Right now, the 3 drivers in the transfer spots are Rocky Boyd, Seth Harlson, and Dallas Myhan. And, we were talking, Sam, last week with league owner Christopher Morrison. He said he was really surprised that Dallas Myhan's actually in the showdown, that he hadn't actually locked himself into the All-Star race just with the speed that he's shown all year.
Yeah, the first about 3 or 4 races of the season, Dallas Myhan looked like a driver on the cusp of getting a win. The last couple of weeks, though, just been not the luck that he's been wanting in that 41 machine, and hasn't been able to get the pole or a win so far this season, but still a very quick machine that will be able to most likely qualify into the All-Star race here today, as Rocky Boyd's having fun with the pace truck.
We have 3 of your top 6 in the point stands that are here in this showdown. Myhan's second in points, Robert Hedges fourth in points, and Todd Eldridge, who we saw have that incident that brought out our first caution of the showdown, he is 6th in the standings. So number of drivers that are running very well in points, have been pretty consistent this year, still having to race their way in to the midway point of the season's main event. As the lights are out atop the pace car, it will be single file restarts as per 87-year ruling. And so it'll be Rocky Boyd that's going to be leading us back to green. And with a single file restart, as opposed to the double file we had to start this race, maybe, just maybe, we'll be able to settle into a little bit of a green flag run here.
And just maybe, I think a lot of these drivers are excited that Blaine Atkins isn't in this race at the moment, because he has basically been the stud of passing drivers on these restarts and getting anywhere from 1 position to possibly 4 positions on almost every restart as pace car truck pulls off. Rocky Boyd leading us to lap number 2 of green flag action.
19 to go in the first stage, 39 to go in the completion of the showdown, as the battle looks like it's going to be for the second position. That's where Dallas Myhan takes a look on Seth Harrelson.
Seth Harrelson really did not get going in that 0-7. Now on the outside, trying to pinch the 41 of Dallas Myhan, and they're still side by side down the backstretch. And I think Harrelson got the momentum off of turn number 2, might be able to continue it here moving forward.
Myhan's going to keep it down there, and both cars, while battling for the second position, actually gained some ground on Rocky Boyd. Here comes Nicholas Weatherby in the 24. You've got about 4 cars up here, less than 0.2 of a second separation.
Harrelson and Dallas Myhan are hurting themselves by staying side by side. They're ruining their tires quicker than everyone else. That's just running just normally. So this is going to be so important to watch out for if they do not finish in the top 3 here in the first stage.
Tyler, I know you don't want to give away your strategy here for others to be able to hear that you're going to be battling in that all-star race.
Contact!
Harrelson saved it.
Wow.
Oh, man. But, I mean, is there any notes you're being able to take here from this showdown that you're going to apply when we get to the all-star race?
Really, you saw right there with Seth Harrelson running that outside, Seth. He held it pretty well, and although that might burn up the tires better, I did mention earlier these cars have just enough aero to fill when you're side by side. That's why he was able to hold on the outside really well, because that inside guy, the aero starts really pushing you up strong, kind of similar to the current Cup cars, so you have to be careful of that as Weatherby takes the lead.
Yeah, you saw the same thing happen right there when Weatherby went around the outside. The 25 of Rocky Boyd kind of got that 25 car a little loose coming off of turn 2. And so Weatherby now to the point. The battle currently is for that final transfer spot in the first stage here. Still, again, between Harrelson now on the inside and Myhan on the outside.
There's something to watch out for these drivers. The cars that have pulled away are top 6. If all of them just run cleanly here through the first and second stage, all 6 of them will get through, but they got to run cleanly. That's the key, as 3 drivers running in the back of Robert Hedges, Todd Eldridge, and Randy Koking, all kind of stuck back there about 3 seconds away from this pack of 6.
Well, Eldridge, the only driver in the field right now that has pretty significant damage with his spin back on lap 1, but he has actually picked up a spot since then, moving from 9th up to 8th, putting Randy Koking back to 9th position. And looks like, at least for the moment, these top 6 are all going to settle themselves out. But I got to wonder, when push comes to shove, when we get down here, maybe at 2-3 laps to go here at the end of this first stage, are we going to start to see Dallas Myhan, Ron Capps, and Jonathan Mitchum put the pressure on that 0-7? Right now is in a transfer spot for this first segment.
I know that the All-Star race is going to be a little different from this showdown. The showdown's all about getting into that race because the All-Star race, money is involved. For the showdown right now, it's all about qualifying to get into there. So these drivers are probably going to be racing a little bit nicer to one another. But I think the All-Star race will be a different story just because there's money involved.
We're going to be touching on this a lot more when we eventually get to that All-Star race event. But Tyler, I mean, these drivers, they only have to deal with 2 stages. You and the rest of the All-Star race field going to have to deal with 4 stages in that one. How difficult is it going to be to pace yourself there for a much longer distance race, especially knowing what you know with how these cars handle at Charlotte?
Well, to throw back to Atlanta with Jake Hounshell, you guys saw that race in the closing stages there. He really caught up to me and Gerald Campbell, and me and Gerald thought we had the right pace, Seth. I mean, we thought we had it well, and sure enough, him and Christopher Morse Jr. just fly up there. So it's difficult to gauge, and especially these guys right here. I mean, they're going at it. You see Myhan trying to give Harrelson all he can right there, but it's going to be interesting as we get down to the final few laps of this first stage.
A number of these drivers took some hard shots at Talladega last week, Sam. Weatherby clobbered the inside wall off of 2. Ron Capps was up in the catch fence. I think that Dallas Myhand was up in the catch fence at one point as well.
Yeah, last week drivers were able to be a lot more aggressive at Talladega because they had 2 fast repairs to work with. Here during the showdown, they got to be a little bit more patient in not being so on one another, but you can see, I mean, our front pack, they are all on top of one another as Dallas Myhand through the grass, getting loose and more in the grass.
And he's going to save it. Boy, I'll tell you what, we see these cars so out of shape, but somehow we see some spectacular saves as well.
I don't know how Dallas saved that machine, but amazing wheeling job right there.
And if you're gonna almost spin out somewhere, you probably want it to be in the grass because that's not gonna wear down the tires nearly as much as a spin on the racing surface.
Yeah, and also there's so much more space to work with if you're in the grass. If you spin out in the backstretch, most likely you're gonna be hitting that inside wall or the outside wall. So, a great save by the 41, but right now running 6th outside of the window of making it and qualifying into the All-Star race here in stage number 1, but right on the bubble spot for stage 2 if he can somehow stay here.
Well, 10 laps to go in stage 1 as Rocky Boyd got back around Weatherby. Weatherby now has that Clemson machine all over his back bumper, and Seth Harrelson and Ron Capps right there just in case anybody up here in this top 3 makes a mistake.
I'm watching and then looking at the pace that's being put down by these drivers. Fastest car on track that last lap was actually Dallas Myhand, who's trying to catch up to this pack of 4 and also it's the 15 machine.
Guys, sorry, I was going to say Dallas, he is committed at this point to making it at stage 1 with how much he slid around and battled these first few laps. He is all in of trying to get back into that top 3. He's got to be.
Right now, he's trying to get the 5th position from Jonathan Mitchum. He's still within striking distance, at least, of that front 4, so he may be able to get back up there. It all depends on just what kind of tires he's got underneath him. And I think you touched on this, Tyler, before we went live, that this is actually one of the few racetracks where the draft's not coming that much into play.
No, these things are all about mechanical grip. And really, as opposed to what you see with modern day stock cars, these things just, I mean, you're not going to get that pull down the straightaway. The biggest factor you'll see that is in the corners when you're side by side with somebody. The person behind that bow could potentially kind of push somebody forward depending on what lane they choose, but not really down the straightaway.
You know, one thing that we've seen in a number of races, Tyler, is that sometimes a driver will get the lead and they kind of start pulling out ahead by 3, 4, 5 car lengths, and it continues to grow. Right now, we've not seen when Weatherby was out in front or now Rocky Boyd. Nobody's really being able to pull ahead. Does that give you some encouragement for the possibilities of passing when we get to the All-Star race?
Well, and it's tough to tell, Seth, if these guys are just holding it for the last couple of laps in terms of their tires, knowing, you know, especially his top 3, knowing right now as long as they stay there, they're locked in. I would say Rocky Boyd's probably cruising a bit. It's going to be real interesting here in these next few laps to see what Ron Capps does if he tries to strike or if he just goes ahead and, you know, rides around.
Dallas Myhand has worked his way up to 5th, and right on the back bumper now of that Napa machine of Ron Capps. We'll see if he's going to be able to get his way up into the top 3 here in the first stage or not, as it's going to be 5 laps to go here in this first stage as Rocky Boyd hits the line.
Rocky Boyd really looking comfortable right now, like you said, kind of in cruise control, and same with Weatherby. I'm nervous, though, for Seth Harrelson because he's got some damage from contact that he had with the wall as well. And actually, it wasn't with the wall. It was with Boyd. So there's slight damage, but I don't think it's hurting that 07 as much as it visibly looks on screen.
Yeah, I've been noticing a couple of times that Harrelson actually looks like he's just a tick quicker than Weatherby ahead of him. He gets some pretty good runs through the center of the corner, but then has nowhere to take that run and has to back off as here comes Myhand, going to go to the 4th position, trying to take the spot away from Ron Capps. As you said, Tyler, that 41 is flying.
Yeah, you could tell he just, as soon as he got back onto the track, he was pushing it as hard as he can. I think Ron is, playing defense right here, but I don't think Ron's going to necessarily risk it if he feels that Myhand is going to really drive it in a corner. You see him really shoot up right there. Maybe just let Myhand go.
I was watching back at the 3 drivers that are running in the back of the field, and Robert Hedges as well as Koki making contact in the back and almost bringing out our second caution of the day before that we got to the end of this stage.
You know, those 3 back there of Koki and Hedges and Eldridge, we can't count them out yet because these 3 drivers, whoever they may be, that are going to be transferring into the All-Star race at the end of this first segment, they're still going to be continuing on here in the second segment. And who's to say that, you know, they maybe make contact with each other and take out somebody that's up here and a chance to transfer in the second segment of the showdown.
Yeah, and you know that the aggression level is going to ramp up once the next stage comes into play. So, whenever stages are brought in, the racing always just comes to another level when coming to the end of these stages. It's 2 laps to go for this stage, coming to the white flag of our stage 1 of this race. And only the top 3 get to move on to the All-Star race from this stage. And then after this, the next 20 laps, the 3 drivers that are better or around these drivers that make it in, we'll see who those will be. But at the moment, it's looking like it's Boyd, Weatherby, and Harrelson. But here comes Dallas Myhan, hard on the 07.
See what he can do down here into turn 3. I was wondering why Harrelson looked like he was trying to pass Weatherby. It might be because that 41 was coming so quickly. As Myhan drives it deep into 3, Harrelson throws the block. They almost made some contact there through the center of the corner, but it looks like Harrelson is going to hang on. He's going to transfer into the All-Star race from segment 1, just behind Weatherby, and your segment 1 winner, Rocky Boyd.
Caution flag out. And Tyler, you were saying that Dallas looked like he was trying to get up into our top 3, but wasn't able to. Do you think that's going to cost him later on in this race?
It very well might, Sam, because, Ron Capps just seemed like he was cruising that entire time. Wasn't too worried about necessarily running up in the top 3, but just making sure he was with the leaders in case something happened. Jonathan Mitchum right there in the 15, he kind of fell off at the end of that stage. I'm not sure if he decided to back it up a bit or if he just didn't save his tires well enough. That will definitely be something to watch. And then Randy Koch and Robert Hedges back there, although they did make contact, guys, usually take a couple bumps and you'd be okay with some damage. I don't know if those guys were really trying to save or if they are off pace like that. So that could get interesting as well. You could have 5 guys really going at it there for those last 3 transfer spots.
It's for sure going to be wild to watch here as we are now finished with our first stage of the show match. Now it's all about the 3 fastest cars besides the 3 cars that are up front, besides the 3 cars that qualified here. So we know it's the 25, the 24, and the 07 that qualified. It's everyone else now battling for the top 3 amongst themselves.
And this is a big opportunity as well for guys like Rocky Boyd, Nicholas Weatherby, Seth Harrelson. If they decide to stay out, it looks like actually Weatherby might be actually parking his race car. But if you look ahead to the All-Star race, segments 1 through 3, there is going to have to be a pit stop made by all the All-Star race drivers. So there's all likelihood that we're going to be seeing them out there for 40, maybe 50 laps on a set of tires. So for these guys that are staying out here and going to finish out this showdown, they're going to get a little bit of an idea of, on the long run, on that many laps on their tires, what it's going to feel like in the All-Star race.
And looking at these drivers, it's going to be such a time to watch out for, as it looks like Weatherby as well as Coquine just came in to get damage repaired. Now, they can come in and get damage repaired. They just don't have a fast repair to work with. So I'm surprised we actually didn't see other drivers come in.
Thought the pits were actually closed, but apparently that was not the case, and I'm not certain if Dallas Myhan may or may not have actually hit the commitment cone, because it's actually got a score that he coming down pit road, at least on our telemetry, so that would have been pretty close on whether or not he would have been close to maybe getting a penalty for hitting the commitment line or not.
Yeah, that's a mistake you cannot have at this stage if you're trying to race away in the showdown, especially with Myhan having as much speed as he's got, guys. I mean, even with worn tires, he might still be just as fast as some of these guys behind him, so you can't afford to start in the back there for this next stage.
And it's looking like with more drivers coming in, admins have said that you can come in and get repairs done. So That is what's going down with some of these drivers. As Rocky Boy decides just to come in through the pits to start in the back to let guys fight it out for the top 3.
Todd Eldridge is on pit road in the 96, getting his damage repaired as he had to fight those last 19 laps of this first segment with that rear end damage.
Yeah, it was rear end damage as well as left and right side damage. This 96 machine has just been through the ringer after that first caution that he was a part of.
So Harrelson looks like he's going to actually stay out. He'll have Dallas Myhan, Ron Capps, and Jonathan Mitchum behind him. Those were the drivers that finished 4th, 5th, and 6th in the first segment. So are we looking at them just based on what we saw in the first segment as those being the potential 3 that are going to be advancing in the second segment here?
I mean, if we see the way that these drivers are just running, I would say so. I mean, but it's all about if we were seeing Coking, Eldridge, as well as Hedges, if they were falling back on purpose to save their tires, then possibly they can come out and shock us. But based on that first stage, it's looking like it's going to be pretty defined on our top 3. They're going to be moving on from stage number 2.
This wasn't made clear, but I'm almost wondering, too, if there was something to be gained by transferring in through the first segment in terms of starting track position in the starting grid for the All-Star race. I don't know if it's that the drivers that transfer from the showdown into the All-Star race will have the opportunity to qualify against the All-Star race drivers, or if they're actually going to be lined up according to how they finished in the first and second segments of the showdown towards the rear of the field.
That is a fantastic question that we will find out once the All-Star race comes around. But for now, it's mainly just let's see who qualifies in as the drivers are getting set and ready to go here. Looks like it's going to be the 07 leading the charge here at the moment. And you can tell it's on that front right side. It's crinkled up on the 07, but luckily already qualified in, and now it's the 3 drivers around him that are hoping that they can get and stay and where they're at, because if these drivers stay where they're at right now, they will qualify in.
Boyd, Harrelson, and Weatherby all transferred into the All-Star race already. We saw the 24 and the 25 come to pit road to be towards the rear of the field. The 07, however, of Harrelson deciding to stay out. What would be the reasoning of this, since he knows he's already locked into the All-Star race?
Possibly to see what his car reacts with having fresh air. There's a possible different reasons why, but I mean, winning this race doesn't really give you an advantage in any fashion. It just shows that you've got a quick car, and also it could be the fact that he's trying to stay away from maybe the carnage that possibly could be going down here in these final 20 laps, as these drivers are going to be all on top of one another, trying to be the front 3 of drivers that have not qualified yet.
You know, Tyler, we talk so many times to drivers and we say, you know, what kind of a strategy do you have coming into the race? And they'll tell us, you know, I had a strategy planned, but then I kind of changed it as the run went on. Obviously, you've probably got a strategy of when you're planning on coming to pit road during the course of what's going to be those 65 laps from stage 1 to stage 3. But based on watching these guys here in the second stage out there on what for some of them is 22-lap-old tires, is this maybe going to play a little bit into your strategy as well?
I'm usually one of those guys that looks to just get the tire advantage as is. So I'm watching to see how these guys adapt in terms of line really on the older tires and see if, you know, you see any changes as far as speed, because I tell you right now, I don't mind saying it, I will definitely be looking to pit later rather than sooner in those first 3 stages, just because you want to have the freshest tires. I mean, you want to be able to push it when you feel like you have to at the end.
Battle for the lead right now between Harrelson and Myhan, and Myhan says, you know, I understand your situation here, Harrelson. You want to be out in front, but I'm trying to transfer my way into the All-Star race, and he might just be a little bit quicker than that 07 as well, as looks like Harrelson can't hold the bottom anymore.
Yeah, I mean, it's a double-sided knife at this point, because he can try to get by the 07 and lead this race and possibly win it. But at the same time, the more that you're side by side and racing hard with the 07, the more that you're wearing down your tires. We already know that Dallas Myhan has been just hard charging through stage number 1, trying to recover from his almost spin out through the grass. So his 41 machine is quick. It looks like Ron Capps, he's not in a very battle mode. Still in the 28 machine, just cruising in the same spot that he's been all race long in that middle line.
Right now, Jonathan Mitchum in the 4th position. So Myhan, Capps, and Mitchum are in the final transfer spots to make it into the All-Star race should something change during the course of these final 17 laps.
Now, I'm watching Robert Hedges he's on the back bumper of Weatherby, and Weatherby is getting closer and closer to Mitchum. If Mitchum starts to drop back like he did on that last stage, I'd be concerned that this 8 machine could be stealing away that final transfer spot to the All-Star race.
Weatherby, Boyd, Coking, and Eldridge were the drivers that were on pit road under that caution, splitting up segment 1 and segment 2 here for the showdown. Right now, 5 of your top 6 are out there on 25, now make it 26 lap-old tires, as it looks like Carlson, for the moment, has been able to open up a little bit of a gap between himself and Dallas Myhan. Tyler, we see you guys loose going into every corner, and we know that when you're in somebody's draft, it actually will produce that somewhat aero tightness. Does that help the loose sensation, or does that just make everything worse?
It's really a weird feeling, Seth, because it almost just feels like you're sliding, but it's not it's more a mechanical grip slide. And there's a big difference between feeling that versus an aero slide like you would in the current Cup cars. So with these things, comparatively, they just feel like, it's like you're driving a boat almost. You're just throwing it in there, and you're just kind of slowly trying to maneuver it around. Whereas an aero tightness or looseness is a lot more quick and sudden. So you definitely get a little bit more of a range to work with behind somebody in these things.
Jonathan Mitchum was making a challenge there on Ron Capps out of turn 2 for what would be 3rd place on track and would be the 2nd transfer spot into the All-Star race here from segment 2. And I'm not really sure why the 15 would be forcing the issue that much, based on the fact that both of them right now are in transfer positions, and that 15 has about a second and a half between himself and the 8 of Robert Hedges.
Well, I was about to make the call. Robert Hedges is coming, but I think that might be the wrong call. Here comes Boyd, Rocky Boyd, in that 25 machine. He shot like a rocket and kind of has now put Robert Hedges in a difficult spot, being stuck on the outside and using up those tires that he was just about to utilize to try to catch up to the 28 and the 15.
Well, here's an interesting thing. Rocky Boyd started this showdown from the pole, so he spent most of that first 20 laps out in clean air. Now with putting the 4 fresh tires on, or I'm not sure if actually he did take tires, but even with making the pit stop, and he's now got the opportunity to work his way through the field, which could very well be a situation he'll be in on the starting grid for the All-Star race.
Yeah, practice and working in the dirty air, and it looked like Dallas Myhan thought about making it side by side, decides otherwise. But still, for 3rd place, still side by side there. And honestly, I'm shocked to see that all the drivers that are locked in right now are battling as hard as they are at this moment.
Yeah, I don't understand it because, one mistake could easily take you out of this race. We've already documented you wreck that race car, you're not able to come to pit road and get that damage repaired. Or even if you are able to get the damage repaired, there is no fast repair. So your car may be infinitely off the pace.
And the car that's waiting for you to make a mistake right now is the 8 of Robert Hedges. But as I'm saying that for Hedges, here comes Coking in the 11 machine, gaining up onto the 8 machine, as Rocky Boyd able to get by both Ron Capps and also Mitchum.
Dallas Myhan's been able to work his way up to the lead, and gracious, Robert Hedges was out of shape going into turn 1, actually straddled the white line down there on the apron.
Got loose and made contact with 11 of Coking, so both of them looking kind of out of this now, Hedges and Coking, and that is an awful way for this race to go down, as both those drivers were looking like they were catching up to 4th place of Mitchum.
Mitchum has now gotten around Ron Capps, so now Ron Capps falls back into the 3rd transfer spot, and the guy that if one of these 3 drivers, Myhan, Mitchum, or Capps, has a problem in these final 9 laps, would be the guy that brought out the first caution. Todd Eldridge right now in the 4th position as far as the drivers that have not transferred into the All-Star race yet.
As we're seeing, Dallas Myhan to the racing point. He is now coming out of 4, coming to 8 laps to go. And now kind of everyone is spread out away from each other, not looking like A caution is going to come out by making contact with someone, but possibly a self-spin could bring out another caution to group us back all up.
Tyler, obviously you're going to be in the All-Star race, so I want to ask you now because we've not been able to really ask this question to a driver that's out there running these race cars. We've seen some tremendous saves this season at all the different types of configurations of tracks. I mean, it looks easy from up here, but just how difficult is it to save a race car like these?
I mean, with the grip they have, if you just stick in the throttle and you work the wheel just well enough. My old guy's contact between Todd Eldridge and Ron Capps. Ron was slowing down as is. Might have some tires going down, and that's slowing him into the wall. Todd Eldridge is down in the transfer spot.
Just like that, Ron Capps is not looking good. As there was actually, I went back to relook. Ron Capps has been slowly drifting back, and I think he might have made contact with the wall as well as his tires going away.
And what's incredible about that, because I think you mentioned, Tyler, he looked like one of the guys that was saving his tires on that first run.
Well, that's why it's tough to judge. A guy feels like they're saving on that first run, and Ron was doing enough to at least try to keep up, right, with that front group. So maybe he just didn't realize he overextended himself, because really the last, about 3 or 4 laps, he just kept getting slower and slower, and then all of a sudden you realize probably it's because he burnt up those tires. And these things are not easy to save in. It's just, guys, you would think it'd be more about the speed. It's more really about how you work the wheel. If you're really aggressive on the wheel, and not to throw my teammate under the bus here if he's listening, but Gerald Campbell, he's one of those guys that he's a little aggressive on the wheel. So with him, we really have to work to make sure that he doesn't, oversteer, or else he'll burn up his tires. And there's a lot of guys like that they think they got it, but as you saw right there with Ron Cap, sometimes it just goes away on you. You can't do anything about it.
I think the driver I'm most, it's kind of sad to see how his race has gone. It's got to be Randy Kokine. Has been involved in a couple of accidents that he was just the victim of a car coming down and making contact with him, and now he's running so slow that he's not up to Todd Eldridge. And Todd Eldridge, I think he's our bounce-back racer of the day. After him bringing out our first caution, he's now in that transfer spot.
Absolutely, especially with the fact that, with no fast repair, you can see how the team worked on getting that rear end, at least to get that spoiler back up in the air to give him at least a little bit of downforce going into the corner. And, he had to fight 19 laps of practically no spoiler on the back end of that machine, and he
Mitchum!
Oh, my goodness.
Contact with Mitchum of the 15! And this race might not be done. That was very hard contact for the 15 machine. Was it enough to slow him down? As Mitchum now into the wall? Kogi might not be out of this. Tires are becoming an issue at this point.
Absolutely are. Randy Kokine is now less than 2 seconds behind Jonathan Mitchum, who rode the outside wall all the way through turns 3 and 4. Right now, this is the battle for the transfer spot between the 15 and the 11. We've still got 3 laps to go.
2 drivers we thought were automatically locked in, Ron Capps and Mitchum, but it looks like might be over for both those drivers as the 15 car slowly trying to just coast his way to finishing this race as he gets into the wall again and about to spin it around as here comes Kokine taking that transfer spot.
Kokine's going to move into the 3rd position of the drivers trying to transfer. It's now my hand out in front, Eldridge in 3rd, and Kokine in 4th that are in the transfer spots.
This is not over yet. Modalis Myhand coming to the white flag of the showdown here, and he's coming up to lap traffic. And if he makes any contact with them, he might be out of this thing as he gets by Hedges there. And now he's get by Ron Capps.
Yeah. Going to clear them both. Now he's just got a couple more corners after he gets to the back straightaway to finally seal the deal. He finished 4th in the first segment of the showdown, and it looks like he is going to finish P1 here in the second segment of the showdown. A couple of drivers actually pulled off track. Rocky Boy, Nicholas Weatherby, who had already transferred. They got all the data they needed. And Dallas Myhand's going to join them into the All-Star race as he's going to be winning the second segment of the showdown. Todd Eldridge, will see if he can make it to the line. He's now going into 3.
Going into 3, just has to get through 4. Close to the apron, and looks like Todd Eldridge making it in. And now it's up to Randy Kokine. Can he make it around? And does. A shocker on our final 2 spots to be qualifying in. And that just shows you got to be protecting your tires. And that's probably something we're going to have to talk about in the All-Star race once we get there.
Tyler, you said you wanted to observe what these drivers were going to be having to deal with on those tires right there in those final 5 laps. What notes you taking there?
I mean, just how quickly those Saints fell off. I mean, those guys, Ron Capps, Mitch, and both probably felt really comfortable 80% of this race, thinking, okay, I'm doing the right moves here. I'm not being super aggressive. But guys, I mean, you saw it once that right front gave out. I mean, they couldn't even get it into the corner without really going up into the wall. So definitely going to be a big emphasis once we get to the All Star race on saving those tires. And it's not even necessarily going to be about pace. It's just going to be about making sure you're working that wheel nice and smooth, I think.
We take a look here at the results. The 6 drivers that are transferred into the All-Star race, Rocky Boyd, Nicholas Weatherby, and Seth Harrelson, they transferred in from the first segment. Dallas Myhan, Todd Eldridge, and Randy Koking, they transfer in from the second segment. So they are the 6 that will be moving on, joining the likes of Tyler Riggs and others in the All-Star race. Drivers that did not make it: Ron Capps, Robert Hedges, Jonathan Mitchum, they will not be able to take part in the All-Star race here this evening. Tough break for all of those drivers. And boy, I got to say, Sam, if the All-Star race is anything like this, I mean, we had, as you said, we had 3 drivers basically pegged as the ones we thought were going to transfer in from the second segment. We were right on only one of them.
Yeah, only one, but I'm very interested to see how Dallas Myhan with Harrelson, as well as Rocky Boyd and Weatherby, are going to react with racing with Blaine Atkins, Jake Hounshell, Tyler Riggs, and Chris Morse Jr., as well as Gerald Campbell. I mean, those drivers are all running pretty similar lap times, and we saw how chaotic it was with just 4 drivers around one another. Now imagine about 6 to 8 drivers all on top of one another, slipping and sliding.
Yeah, and we only had 40 laps here, 2 stages in the showdown. We're going to have 4 stages for 75 laps in the All-Star race. So it's going to be even crazier in that one. Folks, we're going to be stepping aside for a quick intermission to swap over from the All-Star race session from the showdown session rather to the All-Star race session. And Tyler, we appreciate you joining us here, giving us the driver's point of view for what we're going to be expecting to see tonight in the All-Star race, and we wish you luck in that.
Yeah, hey, thanks for having me, of course. And it's going to be a stacked field for this All Star race. So I'm going to go in and try to get some last minute practice and see what I can do.
All right, so we appreciate everybody tuning in for the showdown. Don't go anywhere. We will be back momentarily here for the All-Star race for tonight's Charlotte race at the G4 Sim Racing Series, the Hijinx Clothing Company 87 series here this evening. We will return in just a moment after a quick intermission, and then we'll be back for more action on Flatout Racing Network. And we welcome you back to Charlotte Motor Speedway. The qualifying races are over. It's now finally time for the all-star race here this evening for G4 Sim Racing Hijinx Clothing Company 87 Series. I want to correct myself. Apparently, I cannot math. I said before we went to the break, 75 laps in this main event. It's actually 80 laps, 4 stages. And Sam, we're just going to break down real quickly here what the drivers are going to have to deal with in this one. 25 laps in the first 2 stages, 20 in the 3rd stage. After that, the pits are closed. They can make 1 4-tire pit stop during the course of those 3 stages, but then pits are closed. They race it out for 10 laps. You and I were talking prior to coming back here, and you said you think around the end of the 2nd stage is when you want to make that pit stop.
Yeah, it's the prime time to do it because we're seeing that with the stages that are going to come out, these drivers are going to be running on these tires actually longer even if we have a caution out. If we have any cautions in the middle of stage 1 and 2, these tires are going to be toast. And I don't know how these drivers are going to be making it to the end because we even saw at the showcasing match, there was drivers, their tires popping with about 5 laps to go, and that is a very rude awakening to a lot of drivers out there that they thought maybe they could just wait until stage 2, the end of stage 2 to pit.
Now, we found out that the 6 drivers that transferred into the All-Star race were allowed to qualify with the drivers that were already locked in, so you'll see them intermingled through the field here in the starting grid. Gerald Campbell gets the pole position for this one. He was our winner at Wilkesboro. Hank Steinmiller starts alongside of him. He was the pole sitter at Talladega. Row 2, you find Christopher Morse Jr. He was the pole sitter at Daytona and also took a checkered flag at Darlington. Blaine Atkin, the only 2-time winner on the season, winning at Rockingham and Richmond, completes the 2nd row. 3rd row is where you find Rocky Boyd. He, of course, was the pole sitter for the showdown and was the winner of the first segment of the showdown to transfer in. Tyler Riggs, who joined us in the broadcast booth earlier for the showdown, he was the pole sitter at Atlanta. He's rolling off from 6th. 7th, it's going to be Seth Harrelson. He finished 3rd, I believe it was, in the first segment of the shootout. Jake Hounshell was the pole sitter at Darlington and Wilkesboro, as well as winner in Atlanta. That's row 4. Row 5, we find Dallas Myhand. He was the winner of segment 2 of the showdown. Nicholas Weatherby, he was 2nd in the first segment of the showdown. That completes the top 10. Todd Eldridge made it in through the showdown. John Whitendorf was our winner last week at Talladega. And Randy Koking made it in through the showdown as well, as the green flag's in the air, and we're all-star racing.
Yeah, it's going to be Gerald Campbell leading the charge, and Blaine Atkin, like usual, trying to figure out how to gain a position here before we get into turn number 1. Now up to 3rd place for that 05.
He's now going to follow in the tire tracks of that rainbow-colored number 3 of Christopher Morse Jr. as Steinmiller slots into the 4th position, and making a move back there, Tyler Riggs looking to the inside of Rocky Boyd. That's for 5th.
And then I'm also watching up here for 2nd place. You got Blaine Atkin using his bumper just slightly to move Morris up and putting himself under the 3 machine and now moving himself into 2nd position. And also, Rocky Boyd and Tyler Riggs, that's something to watch out for with them staying side by side for so long. That's going to be utilizing their tires way more than everyone else.
And now with Morse stuck up on that outside line, opens the door for Steinmiller to take a look for that 3rd position. Atkins on the move, though. He's going to move all the way up for the race lead here in only 2 laps in.
I'm really not surprised to see that, but here comes Rocky Boyd. It's Steinmiller almost making contact there as those drivers trying to settle it out as everyone else still side by side behind them. And now we're starting to see cars get single filed up, but man, that was a chaotic first couple of laps for these drivers.
They accordioned up there through 3 and 4. You had Rocky Boyd almost into the back of Steinmiller, Tyler Riggs almost into the back of Boyd. And we mentioned the fact that these drivers only have 1 set of tires down there on pit road waiting for them. No fast repairs, just like in the showdown.
I would feel like the best strategy right now would to be hanging out and just dropping back. But here's the problem. At the end of each stage, there's money to be grabbed for the race winner of that stage. So $5 for the first 3 stages, and then $75 for the winner at the end of the race.
You know, here's an interesting thing, because you mentioned the fact that pitting after stage 2 would be what you would choose for making that 1 pit stop. But I thought about that, and that means these drivers are going to have at least 30 green flag laps they're going to have to run this set of tires. That's not counting the caution laps that are run between stage 3 and 4. If we kind of told that out to, let's say, about 35 laps, that's around the time we saw drivers having struggles in the showdown.
It's one of those give or takes. You gotta be saving these tires up, because if you're not saving them, you've only got one more set to utilize to the end of this race. So you're better off pushing it as far as you can with this first set so that you can have the shortest distance and don't have to worry about saving your tires for the end.
We mentioned earlier in the showdown that only one other D-shaped mile-and-a-half track has been run here during the first half of the regular season. That was at Atlanta, and Jake Hounshell was the winner of that race. Haven't really seen Hounshell make a charge up to the front right at the moment. He's currently back in the 7th position.
I'm liking the strategy by Dallas Myhan and also Harlson, as both of them are dropped back to 9th and 10th place, kind of in cruise control where Randy Koken is, and just, waiting for the end of this stage, as we're only 6 laps in, while our front runners, most of them were not in the first race of that show match. So it's their first time being in a racing atmosphere with this tire strategy model they got to watch out for. The car that's up front, though, that was part of that first race, is Nicholas Weatherby in the 24 machine, and also Rocky Boyd.
Yeah, going to take the 4th position is Weatherby. Rocky Boyd moved up to 3rd as the 63 is slowly starting to fall back, now into the top 5 in 5th position. And yeah, I think that definitely that first showdown race gave guys like Boyd and Weatherby a little bit of an added advantage in knowing what the tires are going to do at what point of the run.
I think the one thing with Weatherby and Boyd is that they didn't actually finish out that race. They stopped about 10 laps before the thing was over. They decided to come in and pit and get prepared for the All-Star race. So I don't know if they were able to test and see how far that the tires could go out for, but they did get a good idea after running most of that showdown race.
Rocky Boyd has now moved his way up to the 2nd position, trying to reel in Blaine Atkin. And we mentioned the fact that Rocky Boyd, this is the first time we've seen him here in this series. We've seen him in other series, but first time we're going to get to see a mano-a-mano between himself and Blaine Atkin.
And it's good to see Rocky Boyd in a different league that we get to broadcast in. Running up here, going to be someone to watch out for. Other drivers that look like are dropping back, that's actually the 83 and the 3 machine of Jake Hounshell, as well as Christopher Morris Jr. Both of them running 7th and 8th. Kind of in cruise control. It just looks like our top about 5 to 4 drivers all on top of one another and willing to use up their tires to make passes.
John Whitendorf is back here right now in the 33, 12th of the 13 drivers, as he nearly just got run over by Todd Eldridge, who skated his way into the All-Star race. Yes, at some point I was going to use that reference because, of course, Todd Eldridge is a U.S. Olympic gold medalist in figure skating, making his way in through the showdown, finishing 2nd in the 2nd segment of the showdown. But Whitendorf, coming off that momentum from a win at Talladega, kind of surprised to be seeing him running back this far.
Yeah, he is running extremely far, and Whitendorf is one of those drivers that does this almost every single week, where he lingers in the middle to the back of the pack, and then by the end of the race, he's up there battling for a top 5 finish. So 33 is someone not to watch. He's someone to watch out for later on in this race, but I think he's kind of just, like I said, cruise control to finish this stage out at least.
We're racing to the completion of lap 25 here of 80. That would be the end of the first stage. And one thing that we were told by league admin Christopher Morris is, with the fact that we do not have caution laps counting either in the showdown or here in the All-Star race, drivers are going to have to make sure they do not have themselves trapped a lap down, because under caution periods where the caution laps do not count, they cannot add those laps back.
Yeah, it's going to be something extremely hard for these drivers if cautions become something to watch out for. As right now, Weatherby and Steinmiller, we'll see if the 63 wants to make a move here on the 24, and will do so, dropping that bumper to the inside and almost making contact there.
You saw Weatherby wanted to throw the block, kind of considered it, then finally decided to in the center of the corner, and by the time he did that, the 63 was already in his left rear. I mean, Tyler mentioned this in the showdown, that that driver on the outside is going to try and pinch the driver on the inside down to stop them getting a good run off of the corner. But as we saw right there with Weatherby, you run a bit of a risk that you may go around off the nose of that car trying to pass you.
I was looking back. The 07 actually scraped the wall coming out of turn number 2. So Harrelson, who's back there looking like he was trying to save his tires. I mean, you also have to save your car that you don't make too much damage. coming to the end of this stage.
Trying to see. Yeah, it looks like there's some damage right around the right rear tire of that 07. And so we'll see how that's going to affect him for the remainder of this race. As back up there for that battle for 4th place, you've got about 4 drivers right up in this vicinity with Steinmiller, Weatherby, Riggs, and Houndshell.
Houndshell deciding it's time to start moving forward after really lingering back for 10 laps. So starting to see, hey, I'm faster than these guys. I've saved my tires a little bit better than them. I can now start making a charge. It's Weatherby into the wall.
It's going to lose him a lot of momentum because we saw earlier how drivers, when they get up into the wall, there's a lot of tracks we go to where you can bounce off of it and be fine. There's others where the wall hugs you and kind of loses you a lot of momentum. That was the case with Weatherby, and you can clearly see the damage around the the right front rather, of that DuPont Chevrolet.
Yeah, and it's going to affect him on entry as he hit that coming into turn number 1, and that's where the wall kind of just sneaks out. And if you don't hit the come into the entry properly, you're going to hit the wall. That's something to watch out for these drivers as you carry so much speed. As Riggs almost came up to the 24 after hitting the apron, is that these drivers, the quicker they enter these corners, the more it just wants to suck up to the outside wall.
One thing we're definitely seeing that we saw in the showdown is the ability to pass. A lot of drivers have been able to make forward progress. At the same time, drivers have been falling back. Something that these drivers are going to have to keep in mind, especially when we get to that 10-lap shootout, the final segment of this all-star race.
Another thing to watch out for on the front stretch is the drivers that want to accidentally graze the grass and decide to be a lawnmower. I mean, we saw that with, was it Weatherby? No, it was Dallas Myhan that went for a little bit of a whirly-dirly around the grass area during the showdown race. So you got to be careful not to graze the grass, or it could be causing you to spin around.
That's what makes tracks like Charlotte, like Texas, like Atlanta, that D-shaped crooked front straightaway so difficult, because different drivers have different ways that they approach that front straightaway. And a lot of times it's drivers that make contact that are fighting for the safe piece of real estate, not necessarily knowing where the car in front of them is choosing to go as well.
Blaine Atkin, I don't know if he decided it's time to slow up, but he just lost a ton of time on second place of Rocky Boyd and Gerald Campbell in third. As those two drivers, once they got close to one another, just caught up to 05 almost instantly entering turn number 1. I don't know if there's something up with the 05 or he just decided to go in a little bit slower than usual as he's possibly trying to save tires compared to everyone else.
Yeah, we were following that possible. Oh, I think we got a car in the wall again back there. I think Weatherby may have gotten the outside wall one more time there going into turn 1.
Yeah, entry of turn 1, the same exact place. He was side by side with Morris and into the wall. Same spot, even more contact this time for the 24 machine.
That's just going to make the handle of that race car get worse and worse as the run goes on, especially if that's going to put some sheet metal down there on that right front tire. Boy, that is a tough break there for Nicholas Weatherby, who showed such speed in the showdown, finished second in the first segment of the showdown, and now we're seeing Hank Steinmiller. Hank Steinmiller is going to start dropping back as well. He just lost a couple of spots to Tyler Riggs and Jake Houndshell, dropping him outside of the top 5.
Battle for the lead possibly here. Rocky Boyd right on the back bumper of Blaine Atkin. Well, man, these drivers have to be careful as we're getting closer and closer to the end of this stage. I know there's money that's going to be involved here, but would you be willing to throw away most of your race to make a pass here to take the lead and get some cash?
Yeah, I do believe that there was a $5 fee for these drivers to enter into the All-Star race. So these drivers right now are racing to get their racing fee back. As look at that contact there all the way through 1 and 2. Gerald Campbell trying to move Rocky Boyd out of the way.
And they're both going to be entering a little bit shallower than usual. And here comes Campbell up the track. Almost makes contact with the 25.
And Blaine Atkin looking at his rearview mirror saying, yeah, keep doing that, because as these guys continue to race for second, that's going to allow him to maybe open up a little bit of distance between the two of them and hold this race lead.
Whether you know these guys are racing hard. Oh my goodness, Gerald Campbell getting close on the apron, almost drifted up into Rocky Boyd. These drivers extremely racy and kind of in a dangerous area because you're trying to, at this point, you need to be thinking of saving your tires for the long run, not running for the win here. Think about winning stage 3 in the end of the race. Not right now. It's too early to be thinking about racing this aggressive.
We haven't gone to a single dirt track this season, but I swear every time I see these guys go into the corner, especially when they're racing hard like this side by side, I look to see if there may be some dirt that they're being able to kind of have that grip, sliding that rear end out. But my goodness, just the way that these drivers are able to approach the corner, it almost looks like, with the number of weeks these drivers have had of being able to figure out what the car does with that entry into the corner, a lot of these guys have actually mastered how to get the best speed possible out of that rear end sliding around on them.
Yeah, and they also have a lot of practice from last week, being able to, drift around Talladega and figuring out how to work that back end. These drivers have had a lot of time, like you said, to figure this out. And every single track, it's been wild to see. And it makes you really want to go back and rewatch the 87 series back then in the day because of how ridiculous these cars look, just wheeling it around.
A couple battles that are brewing back there, especially around the fourth position. We're keeping our focus right now on this second place battle. Actually, it's really a three-way battle for the race lead, but there's been more battling going on for second place, and there's actually been some contact a couple of times there with Gerald Campbell getting into the back of Rocky Boyd, and I'm not really sure that's a good thing for Campbell because I don't think he wants to give himself that front-end damage, maybe hurt that car aerodynamically, especially with the fact that there's no faster pairs available.
Yeah, you want to be careful using that bumper not too many times, but they're not close enough to get to Blaine Atkin, who's going to win this first stage. And it looks like Rocky Boyd in the center of the corner just doesn't take off the way Campbell does, and that's why there's contact. And Blaine Atkins going to be winning stage number 1.
Caution comes out as the segment is complete. Blaine Atkin will rack up $5, winning the first stage of the night here in the All-Star race, followed by Boyd, Campbell, Hounshell, and Riggs. That's going to be your top 5, and you said, Sam, more than likely, you don't expect to see these drivers on pit road, at least here between segments 1 and 2.
No, I'm really not expecting it. These drivers most likely will continue to stay out, trying to get to that lap 40 marker to split this thing in half. And if anyone feels like they've got the tires to really stay out there longer than that, good luck. But we saw that drivers were struggling just to keep their tires under them during the showdown race for 40 laps. We'll see if anyone else can do that here today.
If you come to pit road now, you are basically committing yourself to being out there for at least 55 laps on a set of tires. And it looks like pit road will be open this next time around. We'll see if we're going to have any takers. Is Blaine Atkin going to pick up the pace car? A couple of things that we noticed there at the early stages. We already know Blaine Atkin really good when it comes to the restarts. Jumped out in front by a pretty good margin, but then appeared to kind of back the pace off a little bit.
Yeah, backed it off a lot with our final about 5 to 8 laps. The 0.5 just slowed down in pace and really allowed Rocky Boyd and Gerald Campbell to catch up to him. But then once he started seeing the battling for second place heat up, that's when he started pulling away again. So it could be the fact that Blaine Atkins' tires are going away, but most likely he's just trying to save them for later on in this race.
We have takers. Hank Steinmiller, Dallas Myhan, Seth Harlson, and John Whitendorf. Now, maybe, just maybe on that 0.7, it might be coming down to just get some damage repaired, but looks like fuel only maybe for the 63. So maybe some of these drivers are maybe setting up for the potentiality that we could end up having that final 10-lap segment go into a couple of green-white checkers maybe or something.
Yeah, also just trying to get damage repair done. It looks like the 33 as well as the 0.7 did hit the wall pretty hard. I think the one driver I'm surprised that didn't come down to pit road is going to be Weatherby, who has hit the wall extremely hard twice on the entry of turn number 1, and visibly that 24 machine is beat up on the left side.
Great point there is Weatherby looks like he'll be restarting from the 7th position here when we eventually go back green. Going to take a little bit of time here to complete these pace laps before we put them back under green for another 25 laps per segment 2. So we're going to step aside for a quick commercial break. You're not going to miss a thing as we go FRN side by side here tonight at Charlotte. Getting ready to go back green this time for stage 2 of the All-Star race here this evening. As it's going to be Blaine Atkin and Rocky Boyd that lead us to the green flag. And we saw single file restarts in the showdown, double file restarts here in the All-Star race. So it was crazy at the initial start of this race, Sam. Expected to be just as crazy.
Just as crazy. The tires have a little bit more wear in them, and Blaine Atkins leading the charge, and Gerald Campbell thinking about using his bumper once again. That thing is going to be beat up by the end of the night.
Absolutely. He's not going to have any front bumper left as he's trying to push Blaine Atkin out in front to clear both he and himself of that 25 of Rocky Boyd. And you can see right there, Rocky Boyd doesn't have quite the grip going into turn 1 that he did before, entering on that outside line, almost shifted up to the third groove.
And here comes Houndshell. The last time we talked about him, he was back in 8th place. That 83 machine decided now is the time to move, as well as the 3 of Christopher Morris Jr., who was running around 9th the last time we talked. So both those drivers finally getting into a groove and saying, hey, now is the time to go. I saved my tires for this moment. Pass for the lead.
Yeah, Atkin slipped up a little bit there. Coming out of 4, opened the door for Campbell to be able to stick his nose in. And then by the time they got to turn 1, nothing Blaine Atkin can do as the 31 now out in front leading the All-Star race. But Atkin not going to go away quietly.
Well, Atkin is really good through turns 3 and 4. It's 1 and 2 where he loses all of his time, and that's where we saw Rocky Boyd and Gerald Campbell. It's contact to the back. Car spinning it around. That's going to be the 07.
Seth Harrelson, who had just been on pit road under the caution between segments 1 and 2 to get some damage repaired, to sustain some more damage.
That actually started with the 33 and then 63 contact into turn number 3, and then the 07 had nowhere to go, making contact with both those drivers.
John Whitendorf and Hank Steinmiller, who ended up starting on pole and winning the race respectively last week at Talladega Superspeedway, bringing out our officially first caution of the night for crashes, but second caution of the evening in terms of total yellows.
You know, I think we were talking about how the intensity level was going to be cranked up just a little bit more in this All-Star race.
Just a little.
And I think we're starting to see the effects of that as coming into the pits now. It's actually going to be the 41 of Dallas Myhan. I'm surprised to be seeing him pulling into the pits as the 33 as well as 63 in the pits as well to get service done.
Yeah, Myhan was in under the caution between stages 1 and 2, made a fuel-only stop. And maybe planning to do the same thing here. I would certainly think that it's way too early for these drivers to be considering coming down and taking on those 4 tires, the only set that they've got for this All-Star race.
Well, I mean, we were also talking about the fact that these drivers have to be in kind of a conservation mode for their tires now. First caution of the day, but that is the second time that we're going to have a lot of pacing laps on these tires now, and we saw this during the showcasing race, that these drivers now are kind of in a weird situation where their tires could be popping now around lap 35 to 40.
All right, so here's a question. They have one set of tires in the pits. Is there any possibility that some of these drivers might think about coming down pit road, taking on right sides at some point, and then taking the right side tires on again at another point, just doing two tire stops instead of taking 1 4-tire stop?
I would imagine they really wouldn't want to do that because, yes, all the pressure is going to be on the right side, but those left sides are going to be worn down just as much because how much you're sliding around. So both sides are going to be completely worn, so you do not want to put the chance of possibly blowing your left sides by just securing your rights.
Yeah, I kind of knew the answer, but I had to ask the question. We got to set it up here.
Man, it's just wild racing already for these drivers. I mean, they were already on top of one another up front, and it was the cars in the back that made the contact and were spinning it around. We already know that Gerald Campbell isn't afraid to use his bumper, and also we know that Rocky Boyd isn't afraid to be using his car as a wall to block off other drivers. So we might see some machines spinning around up front here in the next couple of laps, just based on what we've been seeing so far.
Yeah, I mean, the showdown was absolutely crazy in terms of what we saw in the final stages of that race. But based off of what we've even just seen here in the first 28 laps of this All-Star race, to your point, the aggressiveness is kicked up. And that's because, the first race, the showdown, that was just a qualifying race to get into this one. But you mentioned it, $75 on the line for the race winner. And, of course, $5 for each stage winner during the course of this race as well. So, these drivers have a little bit more to shoot for, and that's adding to the aggressiveness that we're seeing on track.
Well, I think we were talking about this during the intermission time when we were getting set up for this All-Star race. With Todd Eldridge in here as well as Randy Kokean, both those drivers were running in the back, further away from everyone else, actually able to save their tires a lot more than everyone else, so they could actually push their machine further on. So if we see some of these front runners blowing up their tires, we might be seeing someone in the back winning this All-Star race.
Certainly could. I mean, we were, like we said, we had 3 drivers pegged to transfer in the second segment of the showdown. We got 33% of it correct. So do not count anybody out that is still running on this racetrack right now. All 13 cars still on the lead lap because every single one of them still has a shot. There's still a long ways to go in this all-star race. We're only 3 laps into segment 2. When we go back green, there'll be 22 laps to go before we reach the proverbial halfway point of this all-star race, with still 2 more segments to go, including that 10-lap segment, the final one, segment 4.
And Seth, here's another thing to put into mind. We are 8 laps away from when we were starting to see drivers blowing up their tires in the showcase match. So we're still not out of this just yet. We possibly could be seeing drivers deciding to pit under green as a pace truck pulls off. It's going to be Blaine Atkins leading the way with Gerald Campbell on the outside.
You saw right there, Rocky Boyd was actually kind of on the back bumper of Blaine Atkins, maybe trying to push him a little bit here on this restart, as Atkins will clear for the spot, and it's now going to be the 25 and the 31 for second place through 1 and 2.
And I thought for a second we might be seeing 3-wide action for 6th place, but they were able to get everyone just staying side by side, as Morris as well as Hound Shell trying to figure out how to situate for 4th and 5th, but for the lead, Atkins onto the apron, almost makes contact with 31, gets loose, and able to save it.
How did he get out of shape there off of turn 4? That's going to give the outside line the advantage as Campbell swings around for the top position and puts the 31 back in the race lead.
All these drivers nose to tail. One simple mistake up front could wipe them all out and gift a win really to everyone in the back. So you got to be careful running this close to one another and get inching closer and closer to that warning window where someone's tires could pop, as on the back bumper of Gerald Campbell is a 0-5.
We've seen a number of drivers make some incredible comebacks this season, but a lot of times that's because they have a faster pair that they're able to use. There are no faster pairs here tonight, so if a mistake is made and someone has a lot of damage, it's very likely that
the back caution! Dallas Myhan, heavy contact in the wall, bringing out our caution. More machines in the back. Kokean, Eldridge.
Whitendorf got a piece as well in the 33.
That is Dallas Myhan, who'd been just cruising in the middle, deciding finally to be pushing forward. Makes contact with Tyler Ricks, who came up, and then heavy contact to the 41, as well as the 24.
You can see the right rear damage, especially on that 41, the right front damage as well, as we go back and look at the replay to see just how hard a hit he took. We do have to bear in mind that back during the showdown, Todd Eldridge sustained quite a bit of damage and somehow was able to sneak his way into the all-star race. So, depending on what we see here when we go back green on just how up to speed this 41 car might be is, oh man, Tyler Riggs with a great save there, brushing the wall just barely, but we'll have to see if this 41 car is going to be at least up to speed somewhat or not.
Well, that's already about half of the field having some type of damage already. So the front half all looking pretty clean at the moment. But man, that is a lot of machines that are now coming to the pits right now, going to be taking service. And that's not even, we're still a couple of laps outside that bubble window, and we were starting to see drivers in the show match blowing their tires. So maybe, just maybe, we'll be seeing some cars deciding to take some tires now, but I still think it's a little too early for that.
Todd Eldridge in the 96 got a piece of this incident as well. You can see the right front damage he sustained getting into Randy Kokean. And, this is bad news not only for Dallas Myhan, but some pretty bad news for John Whitendorf, because this is the second incident he's been involved in so far.
Yeah, and again, more heavy contact for that 33 machine. And we'll see if he can get it repaired and at least be quick enough to stay on the lead lap. But for these drivers that are in the pits trying to take service, that's one thing they have to worry about. If they go a lap down just trying to get repairs done, they will most likely not get that lap back because there is no free pass for these drivers.
Saw Tyler Riggs in the 26th on pit road. I think most of his contact with the wall was with the right rear and the right side of his race car, as he had a pretty nifty save there through 1 and 2 after getting hit from behind by Dallas Myhan. Myhan still sits on pit road. Harleson's on pit road as well in the 07. Saw Whitendorf leaving pit lane, and it looks like Randy Koken has also left the pit road as well.
Well, these drivers are now going to get stacked up and ready to go again. And, we usually don't see 2x2 restarts in the 87 Vintage League. So it's interesting to see how these drivers are going to be handling this throughout the rest of this race, because with them so stacked up, it's causing these accidents just to keep on building on top of one another.
Yeah, it's interesting, and it's also nerve-wracking because we've seen already here tonight, even with the single-file restarts, with drivers getting side-by-side, they don't give each other a whole lot of room going into the corner. The car on the top side tries to pinch the car on the inside down. That car on the inside, if he pushes up, the two of them are nearly into each other's doors. So with the fact that we're double file going into turn 1, these drivers kind of, it's about 6 rows deep of what we've been seeing with regular side-by-side battles all the way through the field. And to your point, a lot more potentiality for more cautions coming out and more torn-up race cars.
We'll see now Gerald Campbell leading the charge here on this restart. It's not going to be Blaine Atkin anymore. So we'll see how the 31 machine can take us, and we'll see if that inside line can take off here as wait and see the piece car lights go off, and then we'll be going that next time by, and the lights are off. We're going this time by.
This is going to be interesting in 2 ways in watching that 05 of Blaine Atkin, because we've already talked about what a great restarter he is, but usually when he's a great restarter, it's either when he's the race leader, the control car, or starting back in that second row. When he's up here on this front row, he's got to make sure that he does not accelerate before the 31 car does and doesn't beat him to the start-finish line. The one thing that might be to his advantage, though, is when Campbell made the pass for the lead, it was around the outside. So now Blaine Atkin has the outside line, and we'll see if he can work that to his advantage to try and get this lead back from Campbell.
That was with slightly fresher tires, and we're inching closer and closer to that danger zone. So these cars are going to be getting a little frisky here, coming closer to the end of stage number 2. And I'm excited to see when and who will be pitting here when we get close to that lap 40 to 45 marker.
Well, it's still 20 laps to go here in the second stage of the All-Star race, as Campbell and Atkin on the front row, Boyd and Houndshow row 2, and then Christopher Morris Jr. and Nicholas Weatherby in row 3. Somehow that 24 car is still up here despite having completely pancaked the right side of his machine, as the green flag is back out in the air here for our 3rd restart of the night.
Going across the line, it's actually going to be Atkin there that kind of just stayed in front while Campbell was drifting back, so it's going to be gifting the 05 the lead here. By the way, and see how race control deems that, but to the lead and to the front, the 05.
Yeah, Blaine Atkin was ahead of that 31, as you
Whoa.
mentioned, all the way to the start-finish line. So that, I don't know if there will be a penalty on that or not, as a couple of guys back here that have some damaged race cars trying to work their way back to the front. Tyler Riggs, the 26, John Whitendorf there, and boy, they're getting quite a view up here of drivers slicing and dicing down the D-shaped front straightaway. It's
been hectic up front as well, as pass for the lead on the outside. Here comes Gerald Campbell trying to make that outside line work. And Blaine Atkins makes contact in the center of the corner. Campbell into the wall.
That's the risk you run when you try that outside line, because it's not a guarantee that car on the bottom is going to be able to keep it down there. Saw Atkin get the apron, came up, and unfortunately, left front of Campbell was to the right rear of Atkin. The contact made shot the 31 up to the wall.
Well, luckily the 31 did not make heavy contact. We're going to be making it 3 wide through the tri-oval there and able to make it work, as now he's up to 6th place side by side with Tyler Riggs, and Riggs will kindly give that position back, but back up front. And that 05 still under heavy pressure, but it's from Jake Hounshell and as well Rocky Boyd.
Rocky Boyd, of course, getting the pole and winning.
Hounshell drifts up a little bit.
of the showdown, so obviously you got to consider him maybe a favorite here tonight. Ooh, boy, I get really nervous when I see a driver try and block on this front straightaway, because a lot of times you'll see them get hooked around as Houndshell trying to find a way around Akin. Akin trying to make that red 05 as wide as he possibly can.
And he's trying his best, and he gets right on. I mean, his sweet spot is just getting that front end a little bit below the white line and kind of using the apron as that marker to keep himself below. But Houndshell going to be trying to work the outside here. The only drawback is the fact that we saw that earlier when we saw Blaine Atkin touch the apron and it launched him up into Gerald Campbell. So that outside car's got to be careful as here comes the pass for the 25 possibly. He gets loose and Houndshell to the inside.
Made some contact with the back of Houndshell. That's what sent the 25s nearly snapping around, but that little bit of contact may have boosted the 83 of Houndshell to the lead. Here comes Atkin with a crossover.
Crossover move underway. Here comes the 05 on the inside. Going to be trying to work it through 3 and 4, and we'll see if we can hold it, but that machine is really trying to stick on the inside, and quite a great corner for the 05 there.
Both cars remain side by side to the start-finish line. Give Houndshell about half a car length advantage at the start-finish line. Rocky Boyd looking to say which lines opens up, and right behind them, Christopher Morris Jr. watching this 3-way battle. He wants to make it a 4-way battle for the lead.
It was the 3 and the 83, slowly and surely dropped back, and now have been moving forward as the run goes on. But it's Houndshell side by side for the lead, and Morris Jr. as well as Boyd as Atkin gets a little loose in the center of the corner.
Nearly slid up into Houndshell, and look at Boyd looking maybe 3 wide as actually Houndshell will clear the both of them here on the front straightaway. It's now Boyd moving by for second. Oh, that 05 is really dropping now. He may have really used up his stuff.
Oh, here comes Morris, almost hitting the apron, and we are in that zone where tires were starting to pop. These drivers have to be careful now, as tire issues could become a thing here moving forward. At any moment, a tire could pop on these drivers, and that possibly is something that might have happened to Blaine Atkin.
You can see he's not able to hold the inside line, very similar to what we saw drivers struggle with in the closing stages of the showdown earlier tonight, as Atkin trying to hold on to third place, but he may have used up a lot of his tire rubber here in the first 40 or some laps of this race. As, boy, he's able to just barely get it down to the inside line, but he lost a lot of momentum and almost had Christopher Morris Jr. in the back of him as a result.
Gerald Campbell, who got pushed back after the contact with Blaine Atkin, has now moved up to the top 5 and 5th position, getting by Weatherby, and we'll see if he can get catching up to our top 4 that are all pretty much on top of each other. But Atkin, that car does not look comfortable anymore as it was earlier.
Of course, for Blaine Atkin, you know, if we look at this here, about 30.
Oh no! Boyd gets contact with Houndshell. Here goes Morris! Contact made! We're still green! Here comes Gerald Campbell on the inside!
They all kept it straight somehow, as Campbell now going to get to the inside of Boyd. That's for second. Switches the outside on Morris for the race lead.
And that's some heavy contact for those guys up front. And I know Rocky Boyd didn't want to spin out the 83, but what a move by Gerald Campbell to put himself to the point.
Guarantee if we had a video camera inside of his car, I don't think that foot ever left the throttle. I think he was full throttle all the way from turn 2 down the back straightaway.
And now Rocky Boyd, kind of in an interesting situation. You don't want to be on the outside anymore. You kind of want to stay single file and wait for the car to make a mistake in front of you and get under them. But it is so difficult when the outside line has been so good trying to make passes here.
You think we should tell these guys that there's still 9 laps to go in this stage before we get to the end of stage 2? Because they're racing like it's the final lap of this overall all-star race.
Still side by side for second place, the 3 and the 25 machine of Rocky Boyd and Christopher Morris Jr. is now they're catching up to the 31, who was kind of making the same moves that Blaine Atkin was making earlier of slowing down a lot more in entry of turn number 1.
Jake Houndshell, as we saw, was able to recover his race machine. He's all the way back in that 10th position. And another thing that we talked about back during the showdown that is very much something we got to talk about with that 83 and a couple of these other guys too that were kind of sliding trying to save their race cars. That's going to wear those tires down even more.
It's going to make it so much harder to make it to the end of the stage. And to stage 2 is where I believe a lot of drivers are thinking about pitting for their final set of tires. But man, they got to survive to that point as they're still running hard all over the place. Our top 4 on top of one another and still side-by-side action back for the pass. I believe that's for 7th place where you've got Dallas Myhan and Nicholas Weatherby.
My Hand, who had an earlier issue, now trying to make his way back up towards the top 5. And I think we got our answer here. That 41 is at least somewhat still up to speed. We were kind of questioning the contact he had with the outside wall over in turn one, whether that car was still going to be competitive or not. At least for the moment, it looks like he is. We'll have to wait and see if he's able to get up in the vicinity of these guys up at the front, like Campbell, Morse, Boyd, and Atkin. Is right now battle for the stage is going on between the 31 and the 3. It's the highest we've seen Morse Jr. at the front of the field so far tonight.
Yeah, but I think Morse Jr. as well as Campbell kind of hoping they'd be up front with no damage, but that is not the way that this race has gone. As looking through the field, every single driver has had at least one type of contact. No one has a clean car, and I think that's mainly the reason why we see in the league throughout week to week they have fast repairs, because every car gets some type of damage and somehow surviving side-by-side action for third place as Atkin getting by Boyd.
Blaine Atkin now maybe was able to save a little bit of his stuff there. Woo, gets down on the apron. Those left sides were completely on the left side of that white line, as now he slips up the track, and Boyd will try to get back that third position. We're starting to see now maybe that the tires on drivers around Blaine Atkin starting to even out to around the situation he's in.
At the same time, though, Atkin, that car is still... he used to be able to just latch onto that white line every single lap, and now he's drifting either under it, slightly above it, and his car just isn't able to stick the way it was before. As Rocky Boyd also is kind of fishtailing it into these corners and just trying to figure out how to dirt track it around each and every corner here, as that's the battle for third place. For up front, Gerald Campbell and Morris kind of both haven't been trying to push each other at all. I think they might both be at the same mindset of, let's just save our tires until we can get to the end of this stage.
4.5 laps to go when they hit the back straightaway here in stage 2. And boy, I don't know, Christopher Morris got an awfully good run there off of turn 2, gained quite a bit of ground, the 31.
Whenever I say something that I think a driver is doing, he always says the opposite after I'm done with my sentence. Here comes Christopher Morris Jr. on the inside, possibly. He's got the momentum off of 4, maybe entering turn number 1. Might drop it below. Gerald Campbell, defensive move, blocking the inside.
Yeah, that's one of the toughest places to try and block as well, because there's so many opportunities for a driver to duck low or high on that broken front straightaway. Looks like Christopher Morris, though, is a lot better out of turn 2. That time, though, both drivers about even. It was that area of the track a lap ago where Christopher Morris Jr. closed right up to the back bumper of the 31.
It looks like the center of the corner, they're quite even, and off exit is where Morris Jr. gets the biggest advantage. Entry might be going to Gerald Campbell here into both these corners. So 31 and 3, both kind of in a great duel as they're both working on different type of entries and strategies throughout this race. Is 3-1 action behind.
Boy.
Rocky Boyd able to save that thing and almost spun it around.
Miller, Boyd, and Riggs were 3 wide going into turn 1, and that 25 nearly met the outside wall, but a tremendous save. We still remain green as it's 2 laps to go. Now white flag will be in the air here for this stage. We had Blaine Atkin win the first stage. Looks like we're going to have a different winner here in stage 2, but the question is, will it be Campbell or will it be Morse?
They got to make sure they make it to the line and not to take each other out. That 3-wide action, though, that we saw earlier, that was kind of shades of what we were seeing last week at Talladega, as the drivers in the middle were always the one that got spun around, but entering the middle of turn number 3, it looks like Gerald Campbell is going to be holding off Morris, but here he comes off turn number 4.
Morse had an opportunity there out of turn 2, didn't take it, stayed in line behind the 31, and Gerald Campbell will win the second stage of the All-Star race. We get a chance to catch our breaths, as do these drivers, as some near moments there in the final 10 laps of this stage. That's the good news. The bad news is they get to go down, they get to put on their set of tires, and we get to do it for another 30 laps, 2 more stages.
Here's the thing, though. They made it to lap 51. They made it that far. They're now good. They just have to worry about if there's any more cautions, or if there's at least one more stage for these drivers to go towards. More pace laps that time. But if there's no more cautions, these drivers should be good to make it to the end with these new fresh tires that I'm expecting everyone to take at this moment.
We've had 2 cautions up to this point of the 4 cautions that were due to crashes, bringing out the yellow. All 13 cars, even though some of them have gotten some damage here and weren't saved by cautions or have had damage from those wrecks, all 13 are still on the lead lap, so they all still have a shot.
All have a shot here to win this thing. As up front, we saw the carnage that went on during the second stage. I mean, I thought our first stage was pretty wild, but that second stage, they just cranked it up to another level, and I don't think we're done cranking it up anymore.
Nope, next stage is coming up, less and less laps, which means less and less patience, I think, for these drivers. This is going to be interesting to watch them make this pit stop here, too, because Blaine Akin, we've seen all season long on some of the tracks where he wins the poles, that number one pit stall pays huge dividends, and he's got that number one pit stall here tonight, having the pole for the All-Star race. So we'll see the driver that's coming down here in third, if maybe he can get the race lead, having that first pit stall in pit lane. Also,
don't slide in your pits. I've been seeing that a lot from other drivers, and they got to make sure that they do not slide coming into their pit stalls.
Gerald Campbell getting the right sides put on his 31. Christopher Morse right behind him there as well. Whoa! Randy Koking. Was that a gas and go on the 11?
Possibly. I'm surprised to see that. Also, I don't know if maybe I missaw something, but it looks like some drivers actually use the fast repair. I didn't think that they had those.
I didn't think that they did either.
I thought we were under the impression as the 07 as well as the 83, I believe both of them, as well as the 26, all used the fast repair here, resetting their cars. So that is something to watch out for, as Steinmiller is out, as well as Todd Eldridge. Both of them have not pitted yet. And Randy Koking, like you said, splash and go back out there on track. Shocking to see these drivers where they're at right now, and maybe it also looks like Koking used a fast repair, so maybe we were misinformed there for a second, but a lot of drivers using fast repairs, others did not.
Looks like the 63 of Steinmiller did not use a fast repair. That 96 of Todd Eldridge, either he's kept his car clean. No, I think he's used a fast repair, because I remember he came down pit road. I think it was after the second caution.
Yeah,
crash damage caution. He had a lot of right front damage.
Yeah, more than half the field have used fast repairs. So I don't remember. I've honestly thought that we were told and informed that there wasn't any fast repairs. Maybe that was only for the showcase match.
May have very well been. So we know that at least these drivers have one fast repair at their disposal. And I'm almost wondering, with them using it now, if maybe they may have another one. They may have two here tonight, because if you had only one fast repair at your disposal, some of these drivers, yeah, they had damage, but it didn't look like terminal damage. So I don't really know if you only had one at your disposal, knowing that there's even a 10-lap shootout coming up soon. Not sure you would use it just now.
Yeah, it seems a little early if you had one, but as pace laps are going underway, I'm actually going to go to a different channel. I'll be right back to get more information on what's going on with fast repairs.
All right, sounds good. So the way that they're going to line up here for this restart, and this is going to be an interesting one, because right now the driver that came to pit road with 4 tires was Blaine Akin. He's going to be the outside of row 2. Randy Koking will start to his inside in third, and the front row are 2 drivers that have not pitted for the last 20 laps. And that's Hank Steinmiller and Todd Eldridge. So we talk about Blaine Akin being really good on these restarts. Gerald Campbell has been really good on the restarts tonight as well. They're going to be boxed in.
Just got information. All the drivers for today's race have one fast repair to work with. So everyone practically has used one, except for the 63. I believe the 31 as well has a fast repair. And I believe those are the only drivers that have one. Also, Dallas Myhan, who we're used to seeing save it, as well as Whitendorf. So there are 4 drivers out here that have not used the fast repair just yet.
Not sure about that 31, though, Sam, because he had quite a bit of front-end damage, and that front-end damage is gone.
Maybe I missaw. Yeah, actually, he did use one. I take that back.
Oh,
Blaine Atkins! Oh, no, Koking! No, all the drivers that just use a fast repair, it's out of here!
Oh, man.
You know, you talked about maybe saving it up for later for that last stage. And I think you might have been right for some of these drivers.
Rocky Boyd, Christopher Morse Jr., Whitendorf, Weatherby, Harrelson, all these drivers have gotten damaged in some way, shape, or form. There could very well be others, as Randy Koken could not get going on the initial restart here, spun the tires and came up, I believe it was into Blaine Ack, and you can see the left side damage on the 05.
The main issue is that Koken got a major shove by Gerald Campbell, who just took off when no one else did. So that 31 just launched the 11 into Blaine Atkins, and the carnage happened there. Blaine Atkins also got front-end damage from running into Todd Eldridge there.
Yeah, both the 05 and the 31 shoved the cars that were ahead of them. And that is going to really cost a lot of drivers that fast repair, as you mentioned. And we didn't know that they had that one fast repair at their disposal, but I made the point. I kind of think that knowing that 10-lap shootout's coming up really surprised a lot of them decided to use that fast repair at that point in time.
I mean, now that we know there's one that these drivers have one fast repair, I'm not surprised the 41 still hasn't used it. I mean, that's been Dallas Myhan's go-to all season long of saving that fast repair for the last restart, and he knows that we're going to have a 10-lap shootout at the end of this thing. And a lot of these drivers are going to be quite beat up now due to the fact that most of the drivers that just took a fast repair all have new damage.
Of course, these drivers that receive this damage, they can come to pit road. They can get that damage repaired, not via a fast repair, but they can have their crews work on the race cars, but they cannot take tires. And I'm looking at the 25 here of Rocky Boyd getting spun around. I mean, that's a lot of wear on those tires with that spin.
Yeah, but Rocky Boyd is going to have an interesting day, as well as Randy Koken. Randy, though, I mean, with this caution, I mean, he might be able to still come in and get at least tires on the 11 machine. That was one thing I was nervous about for the restart, was if he was going to spin those tires or not. But able to still be running out there in the 11 after using his fast repair on that last restart. Excuse me.
Well, how about this for a night for Todd Eldridge? Saw him bring out the very first caution of the night all the way back during the showdown. He was able to transfer his way in, second place finisher in segment 2 of the showdown. And now he's leading the All-Star race.
Leading the All-Star race and rocking the stars in red, white, and blue. So looking good out there in that 96 machine. And we love to see Todd Eldridge doing great out here on the racing surface.
A couple of drivers have hit pit road. Seth Harrelson, Dallas Myhan, and Rocky Boyd. I believe that Dallas Myhan is on pit road just getting damage repaired via his crew. I don't think he's used his fast repair yet. Looks like Rocky Boyd. Boyd in the 25 used a fast repair right there, it looks like? Or was that a gas and go for the 25?
Looking back, he did. The 25 did use a fast repair. He still had one to be utilized.
Add another driver to the list. Looks like Seth Harrelson was down getting some damage repaired as well, not via the fast repair. So you can add Rocky Boyd to the list of drivers now that do not have a fast repair at their disposal. Todd Eldridge was on the outside of the front row for the last restart. He'll be the control car when we go back green, which will be in mere moments. But for now, we're going to step aside for another quick commercial break as we are more than halfway home here tonight in the All-Star race. Pace car makes the left-hand turn to pit road, getting ready to go back. Green flag racing as we got 19 laps to go in the third segment of the All-Star race.
And Blaine Atkin and Gerald Campbell once again shoving each other and Todd Eldridge to the lead and moving everyone out of the way. Todd Eldridge up into the wall.
And he's going to ride the wall there. 4 wide as they were 3 wide getting by the 96.
You're not supposed to be doing that here in Charlotte. I mean, especially with how loose these cars get. That is dangerous.
Well, they're still looking through.
Oh,
no! Cokie
11.
Boyd is going to save it on the apron. Contact my hand. Spins Harrelson around caution.
Well, you know, we talked about tire issue. Maybe tires might not be an issue. I think with all these pace laps that are being ran, I would say otherwise. And cars spinning and utilizing their tires more and more with these spins and trying to get back straight, these tires are going to be quite worn down by the time that we hit the checkered flag.
After all that, Blaine Atkin worked his way back up to the race lead. And yeah, I don't think, to your point, tires are going to be as much of an issue. I think keeping your car in one piece is going to be the main issue for a number of these drivers in the final stages of this All-Star race.
Well, that was a mixture of things that really started out with Todd Eldridge getting into the wall that then caused everyone to be so clustered up. And then it just continued from there. And then Rocky Boyd, his car just got snappy loose on him and he had nowhere to go.
We're going to start things back here again in turn 1 with the 96.
Oh, actually, re-looking at it, I think Boyd actually got contacted by Coquine there.
We'll watch this down here into 3 as Coquine was up and into the wall and yeah, might have gotten a little help from behind. Here you see my hand trying to save it, gets up into Harrelson in the 07. Coquine almost spun it around again there out of turn 4.
For people that have been keeping track of drivers that still have a fast repair, I believe that the drivers that I have marked down that still have it is Christopher Morris Jr. in the 3, Whitendorf in the 33, Steinmiller in the 63, and Dallas Myhan in the 41. All still have their fast repairs to be utilized here at the end of this stage that they're kind of waiting for. But the problem is I believe the pits will be closed for the end of stage 3. So these drivers have to pick and choose when they're going to be coming to the pits because the pit road might be closed when they are thinking about coming in.
I think, if I remember correctly, what we were told by Christopher Morse was that after segment 3 is the last opportunity these drivers do have to pit.
Oh, okay. Yes.
They cannot pit during segment 4 during that 10-lap shootout, but they can, if they need to, they can come to pit road between segments 3 and 4, but that is the last time they can be on pit road for any reason.
These drivers are getting lined up once again to get going here. Blaine Atkin's been doing a pretty good job up front.
Well, I may have actually been wrong. I thought that Blaine Atkin, I'm not sure what's going on here. The 96 of Todd Eldridge is back out in front.
Maybe Eldridge. I'm confused by this. I think the 96 is about to get pulled to the back once we get the one to go.
No, the apparently the 05 was just on pit road 2 laps ago.
Oh, yeah, everyone did come in except for the 96 and the 63.
I didn't realize that. So Eldridge re-inherits the lead because he did not hit pit lane. I'm a little confused on how Atkin came to pit road and yet was able to get out ahead of Hank Steinmiller in the 63 car, though.
Very good questions that we're going to have to go back and see, as I'll be for going back and trying to figure out what exactly is letting the 63 be ahead.
Well, we got the 1 to green signal. You can see they're all getting doubled up. So it'll be Eldridge the leader, Atkins second, Steinmiller third, Campbell fourth, Randy Coking up in 5th, then Tyler Riggs in 6th, Jake Hounshell in 7th, Nicholas Weatherby 8th, 9th, Christopher Morse Jr. and John Whitendorf in 10th position. We already mentioned that Rocky Boyd used a fast repair there under this caution, and looks like Dallas Myhand and Seth Harrelson got some damage repaired as well. All 13 cars, though, that started this All-Star race, albeit some of them with damage, all still on the lead lap and all still running.
I'm still confused on how Todd Eldridge got to the lead because he was all the way in the back around 10th place when that caution flag flew, and then during he just was able to drive all the way up front. So I'm still confused on how that happened, but drivers are getting ready to go. That outside line, though, kind of got stacked up before we even had the pace car drive off.
Already had a wreck on the restart here. Don't want to have another one as Eldridge tried to get the power down, but you can see there that the fresher tires of Blaine Atkin on the outside line going to grip and give him the race lead into turn 1.
Able to let him get going. Eldridge, though, starting to drift up, and that's kind of nerve-wracking. It's more cars on the high side into the wall. That's Dallas Myhand and the 33 of Weitendorf.
Tyler Riggs swings around the outside now from 5th up to 3rd. As Randy Koking trying to find a safe spot to maybe get out of the way of some of these drivers, and Eldridge way up the track. He may go up to that outside wall. Is everybody going to pass by him here through 3 and 4?
Everyone able to do so, and now there's another pack in the back that's going to try to get by the 96 here. But up front, it's clean racing for our front runners of Blaine Atkin as well as Gerald Campbell, but don't look quick now, number 31, as you've got some very quick machines coming your way.
Tyler Riggs in the 26, Hank Steinmiller. Very impressive that car is still being able to do what it's doing on 20-lap older tires than everybody else around him. And Nicholas Weatherby, we haven't really seen him up at the front.
Oh!
63 got the wall pretty good, and now he's almost going to come down to this passenger side door of the 24.
And here comes Dallas Myhand, who we just saw having issues earlier, now able to recoup and get himself up to 4th place, battling side by side with the 24 machine.
One problem here for Dallas Myhand is if nobody comes to pit road here at the end of the 3rd segment and he comes down to get that fast repair, that's going to be a lot of positions he's going to lose out on. As look at this, Tyler Riggs, Dallas Myhand, they're going to be a 2-car train passing 3 cars through 3 and 4.
Blaine Atkin is loving this race, and keep it up as he's got a 2.5 gap between himself and 2nd place of Tyler Riggs.
Riggs now up to 2nd, the highest he's run all night. Woo, we nearly had some contact back there for 5th as Campbell tucks down in front of Nicholas Weatherby, and Steinmiller side by side with the 41 of Dallas Myhand. They're going to go 3 wide maybe with the 26 of Tyler Riggs down the back straightaway.
Steinmiller, that's a risky move. Somehow going to make it work, though, and he's drifting up into Myhand. But no contact made there as the 63 able to hold off and almost took out Dallas Myhand there for a second.
Almost like Myhand saw it coming as he kind of moved up a little bit higher there, exiting out of turn 4, giving the 63 of Steinmiller some room to recover that race car. Back behind them, you've got Randy Koking. He's trying to hold the bottom on those older tires. Christopher Morse Jr. just got around him. Campbell tries to do the same, little contact between those two down the back straightaway.
Yeah, a lot of contact being shown there, and Campbell not impressed. Oh, Rocky gets around. Also, the 96 goes around. And look, keep it straight, though.
My goodness, both those cars making contact going into 3. Both got sideways, both able to keep it straight. We are closing in to the end of our 3rd segment of the All-Star race, but there's still 12 laps to go in this one.
Still a lot of time to just see your race go up in smoke. As these drivers, most of them don't have a fast repair left. So if your car gets damaged here, that's what you got to work with here coming to the end.
3-car battle for the 2nd position now is Steinmiller, Myhand, and Weatherby. Now it's actually going to be for 3rd. It's Weatherby with a big run there, going to get to the inside of Dallas Myhand. And you're seeing right there the difference. Weatherby had used his fast repair. Myhand still has not, and you can see that 24 just a little bit faster, especially with the straightaway speed.
Yeah, and able to just keep going through the center of the corner, not with no damage. And now we'll see if Weatherby can catch up to 63 and get by Steinmiller. If you go back to 5th place, though, you're starting to see Christopher Morse Jr. trying to figure out how to get by the 26 of Tyler Riggs, as this is the closest action right now on track.
And as he's trying to figure it out, Gerald Campbell starting to reel in these two as well. So that's 5th, 6th, and 7th, all separated by about 0.3 of a second.
Well, Koking as well as Rocky Boyd, they were close to one another previously, and they are still on top of one another. As Rocky Boyd's been having an adventurous day here ever since we got done with stage number 1. That 25 machine has been just on a snappy loose machine all day long.
Now, let's not forget, I made a mistake earlier on. I think it was in the showdown where I mentioned the fact that these drivers could be looking towards a green-white checkered finish. In this league, there actually are no green-white checkers. So, we've had a couple of races this season finish under caution. There is the possibility that in that 10-lap shootout, we could end up seeing this race potentially finish with a yellow flag coming out. Now, I don't necessarily know with the fact that we don't count the caution laps that we'd be under that scenario, but we do know that it will finish in the scheduled distance. There will not be any overtimes.
Yeah, I believe, if anything, we could see ourselves with a one-lap shootout. That is the closest racing we could see. But yeah, no green-white checkers. If there is a caution on the final lap, then that will be over and ending the race due to us not counting the caution laps. But these drivers are all on top of one another, and Tyler Riggs just seems to be dropping back further and further now as he is having more issues on that 26 machine.
Campbell and Boyd both getting around him. Now Boyd looking to move even further to the front. Oh, there was contact right there between the right front of Boyd and the left rear of Campbell through 3 and 4 as they're trying to battle for the 6th position. Up ahead of them as well, a battle brewing maybe for 2nd between Steinmiller and Weatherby.
Yeah, I mean, this battle for 6th place with Campbell and Rocky Boyd, both of them have already used their faster pair. So this is contact that has been brewing since the drop of the green when we were seeing Gerald Campbell using his bumper to try to move the 25. Now it's the 25 trying to use his bumper to move the 31.
Maybe a little bit of contact back here in this battle for 9th. Jake Hounshell getting around Randy Koking. They were awfully close door to door coming off of turn 2.
And it looks like Christopher Morris Jr. able to get by Dallas Myhan for 4th place. That 3 machine still has his faster pair to be used, but just running out there. Same with the 41. Also, cars that are running in the back of the 33 of Whitendorf, believe he still has a faster pair. And for the 63 of Steinmiller, he still has a faster pair to be utilized. At the end of stage 3, all these drivers just trying to make it these final couple of laps to have the freshest looking car here at the end.
5 laps to go here in segment 3. Woo, Campbell! Gotta be careful there on this broken front straightaway not to get your left side. It's off course into the grass, and I think he may have clipped it just a little bit, trying to get to the inside of Dallas Myhan to move into the top 5.
Yeah, during this race, I've been seeing a lot of Campbell doing that, as well as Rocky Boyd. Both those drivers racing very similarly with the way that they run down the front stretch. As Dallas Myhan kind of getting boxed in up top and nowhere really to go as he drifts up and possibly will be losing even 7th place to Tyler Riggs here down the front stretch.
And Dallas Myhan's got to be careful here because, as you mentioned, he's got that faster pair that he's able to use, but he's going to lose track position anyway when he comes to pit road because more than likely a lot of these drivers up in front of him, they're not going to be coming to pit lane. So he's got to make sure that he doesn't get that car torn up any more than it is right at the moment.
Well, here's the thing, right? He's got that faster pair that will restart it, will give him a brand new car instantly. So he just has to make sure that he stays clean, at least not completely destroyed before the end of the stage, so that he can actually come into pit road with everyone else. Because there's going to be cars up front that come in just to make sure their car is the most prepared that it can be before we do this 10-lap shootout to finish this race off.
Lane Atkin won the first stage. Right now, he enjoys nearly a 3-second lead back to the second place battle between Steinmiller and Weatherby, which is, again, starting to close up just the least little bit. Also got a battle back here. Surprise, surprise. Gerald Campbell, Rocky Boyd continuing.
Oh, no! My hand gets spun around as well as it's going to be Weindorf. The 33 and the 41, hard contact for both of them. We stay green, though.
They're still going, so no caution will fly as we are 2 laps away from the end of the 3rd stage here of the All-Star race.
You got to get up to speed. Hope that you don't go a lap down for both the 41 and the 33, which both of them, I believe, have a faster pair to be utilized. So they just have to stay on the lead lap for these last couple of laps.
And Steinmiller is in, just got his faster pair, and he's actually going to take on tires as well. Apparently, he had his set of tires still waiting for him, but he's going to lose a lap.
Yeah, that is unfortunate for Steinmiller because there will be no yellow flag out for the 63, and I think he was trying to calculate it to where the yellow flag would come out while he's in pit road to where he wouldn't lose that lap, but it just did not work out properly for Steinmiller.
Well, a big mistake for Steinmiller, as we saw, was he completely overslid his pit box. And so the time he spent having to get it back onto the into his pit stall, that really cost him a lot of time, as John Whitendorf looks like he's going to take on a faster pair and 4 fresh tires here coming to pit road just after the caution flew.
Coming in, pulling in quick, getting that 33 out there, but he's now a lap down, trying to take service for himself. So with him being a lap down, I don't know if he'll be able to get that lap back. So weird strategy moments being underway as a 33 machine still under, possibly he got a speeding penalty coming in.
I think he did. I think you're absolutely right. He's still sitting in his pit stall, and so a costly mistake there for John Whitendorf.
Which I'm going to look back and see how fast he was coming into the pits, but speeding penalty is huge coming into this point, and man, it's one of those things where he didn't have to come in, and yeah, it looked like he was caught speeding, as Weindorf going to be exiting out of the race after going a lap down.
Pits were open that time around, I do believe, and Christopher Morris Jr. was one of those drivers I believe you had on your list of drivers that still had a fast repair. He did not come to pit road, apparently feeling what he's got up in that third position. He doesn't want to give up that track position.
Well, he also could be feeling like there's going to be another caution, but like he said, the pits are closed, so his last opportunity has passed for him to come in and get this pit stops and use his fast repair.
John Whitendorf realizing that with the time he lost with the pit road penalty, that he will not be in the running for tonight's All-Star Race purse and trophy, and so therefore he's actually taken his number 33 back to the garage area. That's so tough to see due to the fact that we had gotten up to 70 of the 80 laps completed, and all 13 cars were still in this race.
Still in this race, still in the lead lap, and just when we came to this end of stage 3, everyone not able to come in. And not everyone able to finish out this race, and they came in going a lap down.
You can clearly see left side damage there on the 0-5 of Blaine Atkin. Now, at least on that run, it didn't look like it was affecting him all that much, because he was being able to pull away from that 3-4 car battle for second. So if he's able to get a decent enough restart this time, he's going to have Nicholas Weatherby alongside of him. Bit of a comeback for that 24 car, who had the whole right side completely pancaked for the first 2 stages of this race. But after getting the fast repair, he's been very competitive as well.
Yeah, first stage, Weatherby, was struggling to figure out how to enter turn number 1, killing the outside wall multiple times in the first 15 laps, and what was looking like could have been an awful day for the 24 ever since using his fast repair during the end of stage 2. That 24 machine's been working his way up further and further forward. Someone to watch out for that possibly with this restart here. 10 laps to figure out who's going to be our winner here for the All-Star race. And Blaine Atkin is someone I'm kind of nervous for, because maybe he was playing a possum for that first 40 laps of this race, but it seemed like he was getting slower after the first 15 laps of a run, and then his tires just drifted away. Maybe he's figured out how to save those tires a little bit better here since the end of stage 2.
Gave you the front row. Christopher Morris Jr. will be 3rd. Gerald Campbell 4th. Rocky Boyd, who I think I've chalked up his saves tally to 4 so far in this All-Star race. He'll be 5th alongside of Tyler Riggs. Jake Hounshill 7th. Harlson in 8th. 9th will be Randy Koking. Dallas Myhand in 10th. And right now, the last car that's in the running for this, still on the lead lap, is the 96 of Todd Eldridge. And we need to stress as well for everybody that's watching here, 10 laps to finish this race out, but 10 green flag laps. If the caution comes out at any point, any laps we run under caution will not count towards the 10 laps of this final segment. So to your point, you said this earlier, Sam, we could see even a 1-lap shootout to decide this race.
And who's going to be helping who on this restart? We know Blaine Atkin's going to get a great restart, but can Weatherby keep up with the 0-5 on this restart?
I wonder what was going on right there between the 0-5 and the 25. Maybe a little bit of bantering going on there on the racetrack. I've been involved in something like that as well, and we'll see if maybe Rocky Boyd is saying, "Hey, take a good look at this front bumper because you're going to see it pretty soon."
I mean, Rocky Boyd's got to make sure that he doesn't slide that thing around, as he's been slipping and sliding here in the last 30 laps. The 25 machine, I'm surprised how clean and crisp it looks at the moment, because that thing should be junked up with how he's been pushed around and been a pinball everywhere.
Blaine Atkin, we mentioned this at the start of the All-Star race, is the only driver coming into tonight that has multiple wins this season, and would love to add an All-Star race win to what's already been a great year for this 05 team. But he's going to have 10 laps to hold off 10 other hungry drivers. And we'll see who's going to be the first one to the checkered flag. And you get the feeling here, Sam, just based off what we've been seeing as we've gotten progressively closer and closer to the end of this race. We are not done with cautions, I don't think.
Absolutely not. These drivers being stacked up on these restarts, it's just asking for another quick caution to be seen here today. We've already seen when the 11 got pushed by Gerald Campbell to be moved forward. Gerald Campbell, as we speak, he is running fourth at the moment, up top. Someone that is probably going to be pushing Weatherby to try to keep him up with Blaine Atkins, and someone who's been keeping up on those restarts that we usually see Atkins pulling away from.
Pace truck makes the left-hand turn to pit road. The final 10-lap, fourth stage of the All-Star race is green.
Blaine Atkin getting a good start, and Gerald Campbell tried to shove the 24 machine, just not able to, as now they're getting all scattered in the back, trying to figure out where they're going to be, as side-by-side action for second place.
We're 3 wide mid-pack as they were splitting the 11 of Coking. Now they get back to double wide. Well, nope, 3 wide. Tyler Riggs put in the middle there with Harrelson and 63 of Steinmiller, who is a lap-down machine. Now it's double wide all the way from the front to the back, as up at the front. Look at this battle, this 4-way battle for the top spot.
You talked about Rocky Boyd. Maybe he was going to be coming up front. He is trying to shove one of the 2 drivers in second place to get them going so he can finally start trying to be in the back bumper of that 05.
Well, Rocky Boyd has already taken a victory tonight, if you will, winning the first segment of the first stage in the showdown. He wants to win the big one now that he's qualified in. He wants to win this All-Star race. Looks like he's going to be following the 3 of Christopher Morse into the 3rd position around Weatherby.
Going to be trying to do everything he can here to shove Christopher Morris Jr. and clear himself, and does so. Now confirmed.
Weatherby!
Oh, here comes Houndshell!
Houndshell forced his way in there as Weatherby nearly got spun for his troubles trying to block that 83 into turn 1.
Also contact in the back. Dallas My Hands' woes continue as Gerald Campbell gets under Weatherby this time.
Weatherby cannot close the door. Someone's always to the inside of him, it seems, here on this last lap. First it was Houndshell, now it's Campbell. Now here comes Harrelson trying to knock Weatherby further outside of the top 10.
That outside line was working quite well when you have fresher tires, as Harrelson almost... There was some contact there, a little bit of damage shown for the 24, but man, those jars are right on top of each other. 3 wide action in the back.
A good thing that our broadcast colleague Logan Brakey isn't here, or he'd be overusing his Argy Bargy catchphrase, because that's what's going on in the middle of the pack right now.
They are just shoving everyone around, and we're finally kind of getting single-filed out, but Steinmiller is the one who's making the outside line work in that 63 machine.
He's going to get around Gerald Campbell here going into turn 1. Don't forget, he used...
Oh, Rocky Boyd and Houndshell! Houndshell spins around, caution! Weatherby, as well as Steinmiller, contact being made in the back.
And Houndshell going to take a pretty hard shot with the front end of his machine into the inside wall. There's the 24 of Weatherby as well. And it looks like that 24 car is smoking. Boy, he took a shot into
he's
somewhere.
done. That 24 machine is done for the day. The engine is gone for the 24.
I'm not sure if he hit the wall at a bad angle or if that was possibly the 63 of Steinmiller that got into him, but you're right, that car is completely toast.
Yeah, you go back and Houndshell got loose, and when he came down, he hit the 24 car on the exit of turn 2, and he got a very awful angle on the first contact into the wall and then hit the wall again before getting that machine going forward. And an awful way for this race to go out for the 24 Weatherby, who we were saying had a chance with how clean his car was looking, and it's over just like that.
And Houndshell was battling at the time up inside the top 5. I think he was in the 4th position when he made that contact with the back of Rocky Boyd.
Yeah, I mean, those drivers were just on each other. We're not giving a bumper at all, and I thought maybe it was going to be Rocky Boyd that was going to go around, but Netcode decided to say, no, we're going to make Houndshell spin around here instead of the 25, and it just launched the 83 around. Contact with the lap machine of Steinmiller and taking out Weatherby.
There you see as we're on board with the 24 of Nicholas Weatherby. Just absolutely nowhere to go, and you kind of thought after the prior contact between, Steinmiller and Houndshell that maybe the 83 would have gotten shot back up the racetrack, but no, that 83 continued to slide its way down the racetrack and unfortunately into the path of Weatherby, who has taken his 24 back behind the wall. So we're starting to stack them up back there in the garage area. We saw Whitendorf go back there earlier, and now Weatherby is going to join him.
Looking at some of these drivers that are up front at the moment, it's going to be a 5-lap shootout now. And Blaine Atkin, I wouldn't say that he's comfortable or confident in this, because that 25, and now Gerald Campbell up here, that's some hungry drivers that have been quick all race that are going to be right there on the back bumper of the 05.
Well, that spin by the 83 took place only 2.5 car lengths behind Blaine Atkins, so he had Morse Jr., Rocky Boyd, and Jake Houndshell all right there within striking vicinity of him when they were all going into turns 1 and 2.
And it's going to continue forward as now, Gerald Campbell gets to try again, push another car on the outside. We'll see if he's going to be able to push the 3 of Christopher Morris Jr. up to the front.
And a lot of this, too, if you think about it, for a lot of these drivers, it's about timing where you are if a caution were to come out. This is the second time, as you pointed out, that Campbell's going to be on that outside of the second row. And if he can't give that car just ahead of him on the outside of the front row enough of a shove, it kind of stalls him out in his momentum.
And looking at cars that are done for the day, Nicholas Weatherby parks the 24 machine and is done for the rest of the event here today.
Remember, pit road is now closed, so you're not going to see anybody on pit road to get damage repaired. If they had a fast repair left, they had to use it back there on the caution between segments 3 and this final segment 4. They can't come down and take tires either, because they had one set they had to use in either segments 1, 2, or 3. So pit road is going to be a lonely place here for this final 5 laps green and however many caution laps we may still be in for.
I don't think we're done with cars looking like they're in the Destruction Derby just yet. I mean, we've been seeing Gerald Campbell use his bumper. We've seen Rocky Boyd use his bumper. I don't think Christopher Morris Jr. can really use his bumper because it's pretty crinkled up or he's going to get engine damage. But yeah, you could still use your the side of your machine to make some contact. And there's some cash on the line. $75 to be earned for these drivers here today. Getting the win here. And we've already seen some other drivers get some cash. And Blaine Atkin has got a little bit of money under himself after winning a stage as well. Who won the other one? I'm trying to remember. It's been a long race.
Right now, Blaine Atkins has $10 in the bank, winning segments 1 and 3. Gerald Campbell, $5 in the bank, winning the second segment.
Rocky Boyd wants to get his hand in the pot there after showing himself being one of the quickest drivers from the showcase match that we had. So we'll see if the 25 machine can make its way forward right now, 3rd place. I know Christopher Morris Jr., I mean, he's always quick at every track that we're at. Cannot count out that 3 machine.
That's going to be fun to watch here with Rocky Boyd. Going to be 3rd on this restart, right on the back bumper of that 05. So not only does Blaine Atkin have to focus on getting himself a good jump, he's got to make sure he's on the defensive as soon as they get into turn 1.
Looking throughout the field, the one machine that I am surprised on how clean it is is the 26 of Tyler Riggs. He's kind of just been lingering, waiting for this moment. And, someone in the chat threw out maybe Riggs is saving. He could have tires here to outshine everyone else, but he's back in 6th place.
Well, he had the opportunity up here in the broadcast booth with us during the Open to kind of observe, take some notes, make some mental strategy here for the All-Star race, and it may all be playing to fruition, as you pointed out. We haven't really mentioned him a whole lot here tonight as far as making forward progress, but he is right there in the same zip code as all these leaders, going to be 6th on this restart, which is going to be taking place here. And I'm waiting to see, are they going to single file now? Because they're not doubling up.
Looks like it is a single file restart. Switching it up, this possibly could be the final restart here for the All-Star race. And we are green with Blaine Atkins leading the way with the 3 behind him.
5 green flag laps.
Tyler Riggs on the outside.
Riggs with a big run. He's going to get some help there from Harrelson, as Campbell might have spun the tires a little bit there.
From 6th to 4th place, here comes Riggs in the 26 machine.
Oh, Harrelson's going to stick it down to the middle, now to the inside, as now here comes Morse.
He's flipping!
Big wreck on the back straightaway. Morse. Oh, Riggs going to get spun off the nose of Boyd.
Boyd just got disqualified from the race.
Oh, man.
Oh, my goodness. And we're not done yet.
Not done yet. It's still going.
Yellow flag. These caution laps will not count, so we still have 4 laps to go when we go green again. But man, that one is a tough one to call. With
that
the fact,
definitely is.
As drivers down the backstretch trying to figure out where their lane's going to be, but that is a lot of front runners taken out of this race.
And folks, we laugh because of 2 reasons. Number 1, we know this is going to be happening. There's nothing on the line except purse for these drivers. $75 on the line. So everyone's going to stick their nose in maybe where it doesn't belong. And the second thing is, too, just for that reason, there's no points on the line. There's no championship to be had here tonight. So, this is fully what we expect to see here in these final 5 laps.
And we thought maybe Rocky Boyd had a chance there. Nope, not anymore, as the 25 machine has been disconnected from the race and disqualified. But man, a huge wreck and a massive ride that the 3 machine Christopher Morris Jr. went. And it looks like his race is done while he's in pit road.
Let's see if we can find out what exactly happened, because it looked at first glance like maybe Christopher Morris Jr. threw a major block on Rocky Boyd. And here it was. Boy.
It's such a hard call.
It really is. We could take so many camera angles there, and at least just from the one that we took right there, it looked like the 3 came up and the 25 was there, but we'll take a couple more camera views here and let you guys be the judge. But the end result is that 25 has been disqualified from the All-Star race.
Yeah, I mean, it was a little mixture of both. I think the 25 coming down, the 3 coming up, and neither of them were clear at that moment. And contact was made. Now the drivers cannot come into the pits, so I'm questioning if the 3 of Christopher Morris Jr. is still going to be able to race here, as he's still in the pits. I believe that's going to be putting him a lap down once we get green again.
Normally when a car gets airborne, that's pretty much their day done. I mean, that 3 car flew in the air, so...
I would say so. That was a very epic air time that 3 got. And he actually didn't go end over end. I mean, he went for a great spin there.
A couple other drivers that we kind of wonder if maybe their day could be over. The 07 of Seth Harrelson took a pretty hard lick into the inside wall. We know that Rocky Boyd's been disqualified. Tyler Riggs got a piece of that as well, but it didn't look like he got a whole lot of damage. He had some damage to the right front, and then he got that contact afterwards from the 25 of Boyd, but that only kind of spun him sideways. So the only thing I might be worried about for that 26 is the wear on the tires. I think damage-wise, he might still be okay, and he's going to be lining up still 3rd place for this restart.
And will do so here. They are lining up and getting ready to go. As it looks like Todd Eldridge has kind of parked his car in the pit road lane, looking like he is done, as well as the 11 and the 3 all sitting in pit road. As the 11 actually got some service done, is getting back out there on track. I believe that would be a disqualification for the 11. We'll have to wait and see how the admins want to do that.
Yeah, pit road is closed. And I'm not certain if maybe I'm trying to figure out why the 96 is sitting there. I don't know if maybe he was going to come down and take service, and now he's maybe being told, pits are closed, and he's trying to figure out what to do.
I mean, he's already been put down a couple of laps. What would have been a couple of laps by now, so we're waiting to see where cars get placed. As everyone's getting stacked up and ready to go this time by. I take that back. We are not going this time by as the lights are still on the pace car.
So now it's going to be Blaine Atkin and Gerald Campbell, the front row, followed by Tyler Riggs and Seth Harrelson, two drivers that we know got at least some damage from that incident on the back straightaway, bringing out this latest caution. Dallas Myhand, this kind of breathes new life into that 41 as he'll be lining up in the 5th position, and Jake Hounshell is going to be in 6th place. And right now, just based off of what we're seeing, it looks like those are the drivers that are going to be in the hunt for this victory. The 11 of Randy Koking, to your point, Sam, he's been disqualified, taking service here, coming down pit road on the final segment, which was not allowed.
Yeah, the 11 is now done. I believe that's kind of leaving us with looking at cars that are still running up here. Only 6 drivers left to battle this out for the final purse. And it's going to be a 4-lap shootout if we can stay green for those 4 laps.
Well, of these 6 drivers that are up here, 3 of them, I believe, 2 of them are former winners from this season. No, I was wrong. 3 of them, Blaine Atkin, Gerald Campbell, and Jake Hounshell, former winners from this season. Tyler Riggs was locked in based on being a pole sitter from this season. And both Seth Harrelson and Dallas Myhand had to race their way in through the showdown. Right now, it looks like it's going to be one of those 6 that is going to be taking this checkered flag, but we're going back green, Sam, with still 4 laps to go.
4 laps to go. Still a lot of chaos to be seen as Gerald Campbell's still up front here. And I think him as well as Tyler Riggs, your favorites to race against Blaine Atkin. I'll have to wait and see. At the moment, though, I don't know if it's messing up for you, but because Todd Eldridge is sitting on pit road, our telemetry is slightly off at the moment.
Yeah, ignore the fact that it shows the 96 as the race leader, because he is not.
Oh, they are jacked up.
Gracious.
I mean, Dallas Whitehead doesn't even have room to get in line as they're so jacked up. Now on the outside, it's going to be Tyler Riggs on the outside of the 31. Green flag out in the air. 4 laps to go. Who's going to be winning the pot of $75?
Side by side for second. Riggs on that outside line. Cannot find the grip. Campbell will clear for second. Oh, Carlson back there, as I think the 63, the lap machine of Steinmiller, may have gotten up and into the wall. He is not battling for this win. They got Myhand back here in 5th. Hounshell back in the 6th position.
And got an update on the drivers that are just sitting right now. Most of them ran out of fuel, so not enough fuel put into their machines. As for the lead right now, Gerald Campbell right on the back bumper of that 05, and so is Tyler Riggs in 3rd place. They are all in line waiting for a move to be made as Tyler Riggs did not get a good launch. As they're snaking it down the back stretch. Here comes Campbell on the inside.
Campbell was below the white line, which is not out of bounds.
Contact!
Slides up into Atkins. Puts Atkins in the wall.
It comes down. Contact to the Riggs. And Riggs hard going to be in the pit road into the inside wall. Riggs' day is over practically as Campbell, he's running away from this thing.
Yes, he is. It's now over a second between himself and Blaine Atkin after all that chaos from 2nd place on back. 2 laps to go, 1.5 down the back straightaway. You see that car back there? That is not for position. That's the lap machine of Hank Steinmiller. It's over a second back to the 05 of Blaine Atkin, who's going to have his hands full momentarily with the 07 of Harrelson.
Harrelson, if he can somehow get to the back bumper of the 05, could go for a 2nd place finish, but it is a 1-second gap at the moment. Here's one thing, though. Steinmiller is trying his best to get to the back bumper of the 31 to unlap himself at the moment.
It came down to Campbell having to go below the white line in the back straightaway, which hurt his entrance into turn 3. He slid up into Akin, who in turn went up into the wall and got into Tyler Riggs. End result's going to be end result, though. $75 richer and winning the All-Star race. Gerald Campbell here tonight at Charlotte.
A huge big day for that 31, and a bold move that worked out for the 31 machine. A block that had to be made for Blaine Atkin, and just you have to try your best. And these machines can take a beating, but that was a hard lick both for the 05 and the 26. But it's Gerald Campbell in the 31 that was able to hold everyone off.
And Gerald proved earlier on in this All-Star race he was not going to be afraid to use that front bumper. And I thought if he didn't go down below that white line, we were going to be seeing him shove the back of that 05 down the back straightaway. But as mentioned, that white line is not out of bounds at the 1.5 mile tracks, at the 2 mile tracks. You can go down there. This is not a super speedway. So a clean pass since he was forced down there via a block for Gerald Campbell as he burns it down here in Charlotte.
What this All-Star race had everything to be shown. I mean, we had a little bit of a green flag run there seen in the first stage. Second stage was kind of just mayhem starting out, and it never cooled off after once the second stage started.
Campbell continues to do his burnouts here, and he may run this thing out of fuel. As we saw him shaking the car back and forth down the back straightaway, just the elation of winning this All-Star race here tonight. And Campbell and Atkins sweeping the segments here tonight, both of them with 2 wins apiece. But of course, for Campbell, winning the big one, the 4th and final stage of this All-Star race. Let's look at the finishing results from tonight's event. And how about the 3rd place finisher? Seth Harrelson had to qualify his way in, finished 3rd in segment 1 of the showdown, and brings it home P3 after being involved in quite a number of our cautions here this evening.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of those things where I think if Harrelson didn't qualify in on that first stage, it would have been crazy to see who would have qualified, because we saw just from that showcase match of how much chaos could have been seen with cars popping their tires, and then here today with cars, really the tire wear was the main issue, as well as making sure you had enough fuel to pack it to the end.
Jake Hounshell is going to bring it home in 4th place. That car had sustained quite a bit of damage during the course of this race. Tyler Riggs, we saw him and the contact between himself and Blaine Atkins shot him down pit road. Now, because he decreased his speed after being forced down there, he did not get penalized, but he did not go to pit road and into his stall, so he was still able to make it around for a top 5 run. And the last car to finish on the lead lap here this evening was the 41 of Dallas Myhand, our winner from segment 2 of the showdown. Hank Steinmiller was in 7th place, and he was the last car to finish. As you mentioned, Sam, Todd Eldridge ran out of fuel. Randy Koking ran out of fuel, and apparently because he was serviced on the final stage, he was disqualified. Christopher Morse Jr., because of crash damage, finished in the 9th position. And then just for all these drivers, the good news is they don't lose any points. They're not out of the running for a championship because of these DNFs, but obviously a tough all-star race for them.
Yeah, very tough. And, this race is going to help a lot of drivers be a little bit more prepared for these D-shaped races moving forward in the season. And this is just a halfway point for these drivers and the season that they're running right now. And it just makes you so much more excited for what the season holds for us to watch out for.
How about also the fact that, we talk about this being the midway point of the season, giving some of these drivers either momentum or maybe putting them in a little bit of a slump heading into the second half of the season.
Yeah, I mean, it's frustrating for some, but I think also promising just because they know that for this All-Star race, there were so many different rules that aren't really in our regular season, with there not being any fast repairs and with the fact that the tire usage, you can get tires a lot more frequent than what they were dealing with here today. So I think a lot of these drivers are excited for the regular season to get back into fashion, and others are going to try to carry this momentum forward.
Well, these drivers had to deal with 80 laps here tonight with only purse on the line. Points will be on the line next week, back here again at Charlotte for 200 laps. So I hope that they got the experience in here tonight to apply to that rather lengthy race coming up next week. Let's go down trackside, get ourselves some race interviews with some of our top 3 finishers. And let's kick things off with third place running Seth Harlson. Hey Seth, it's Sam and Seth up here in the Flatout Racing Network studios. You got us?
Yes, sir.
Well, I mean, let's start off with your evening. You had to qualify your way in through the showdown. You got your way in third place, finishing in the first segment. Knew you were going to be locked in, but we saw you also stay out there for those final 20 laps. Did running all of the laps there for the showdown help you to prepare for the 80 lapper here in the main event?
Yeah, my main goal there was put some laps on the tires, get an idea for the fall off, just kind of prepare me for the show here.
Obviously we saw you get involved in that wreck on the back straightaway, coming to 5 laps to go. We saw you take a pretty good hit into that inside wall, but you were still right up there in the same vicinity as the top 3 when we eventually went back green, and we saw that contact with the race leaders. I mean, was there a point where you were thinking, hey, maybe the waters will part and I can actually go by and win this thing?
That's exactly what I was hoping for. I didn't have the top end speed, due to aero, like the top 2 guys, but I was hoping, maybe they would get into each other and I'd get by them.
How difficult was it with the fact that you ended up having to choose one time to be able to come down and take tires? Were you absolutely committed to be coming down pit road at the end of segment 2, or were you thinking maybe of playing some kind of strategy outside of what everybody else was doing?
No, I mean, with a small car field like this, I figured cautions would be rare, so I didn't want to get into that position and hurt myself. So I committed to coming at the end of 2.
Well, Seth, I mean, we're going to be having to race here again next week. Was there anything today that you can take and apply for next week? I know the rule sets are slightly different, but is there anything to take away?
I think tire wear, just learning how to go, stay close to the leaders, but not blow your tires is something I learned tonight.
Well, Seth, obviously a tremendous run for you here this evening. We've seen you running up inside of the top 5 for most of the past couple of weeks. And of course, you're wanting to have a great second half of the season, trying to make a run for that championship. A great start here to at the midway point, bringing it home with a P3 run after qualifying your way in through the showdown, highest finishing of the showdown drivers here tonight. We're going to let you do some shout outs now.
Hey, I got nothing but just thank you guys for all you do. Enjoy the broadcast, and thanks, Chris.
That's Seth Harlson, brings it home third place here tonight in the All-Star race. Congrats on a great run. Well-deserved.
Thanks, guys.
And let's get second place finishing Blaine Atkin. Hey, Blaine, it's Sam and Seth up here in the Flatout Racing Network studios. You got us?
Yes, sir.
Well, what a wild finish to this one. We saw the 2 of you, yourself and the 31 of Campbell, take it all the way down to the apron on the back straightaway there. Obviously that's a block that has to be made in order to be able to, hold on for this victory. But tell us about that contact up there in turn 3. Were you expecting something like that since the both of you were so far down the track going into that entry of the corner?
Oh, yeah, like you said, it had to be done. He was a whole lot faster than me, and I just tried my best to hold him off. $75, when you see them dollar signs, you do everything for it. And, I mean, it wasn't really his fault. He just got into me there.
We ended up having, everybody come down pit road at the end of segment 2 to take on the set of 4 tires that you guys had waiting for you. Saw a lot of drivers, including yourself, use the fast repair then. With knowing that you had that 10-lap shootout coming out, what played into the strategy of taking the fast repair at the midway point?
I think you just have to have the best car to get up front, because once you get up front, you don't have to worry about all the chaos in the back if something does in case something does happen there. And like on that restart, everyone got stacked up and guys in the back got screwed over from it.
Yeah, I mean, Blaine, the rules were slightly different here for the All-Star race compared to what it is for the regular season. With utilizing your fast repair so early and so much damage around these vehicles, how was it driving this car being as damaged as it was compared to other cars that are around you?
I don't really know. The car handled it a whole lot different than what a lot of other cars are doing, because I to be honest, I wasn't able to hold it straight going down the straightaway there, and I was just trying to hold on for dear life.
One thing that Sam touched on there, Blaine, was the fact that next week you guys are going to be here for 200 laps. I mean, obviously, at that point, there's points and there's a championship on the line. Does it really change the approach of how you're going to be attacking this racetrack next week as opposed to how you did tonight?
Oh yeah, you definitely got to save a whole lot more tires. Some of the times I was going balls to the walls when I shouldn't have, and should have just saved a whole lot more tires than what I was doing.
Well, Blaine, obviously a great run for you here this evening. You nearly were able to pull this one out. Almost were able to go to victory lane for what would have been your third time here this season. You head into the second half of the regular season, the only multi-time winner still here in the series. And obviously, we know that we're going to be seeing you up front quite a bit in the upcoming races as well. We're going to do some shout-outs now.
Oh yeah, I want to thank SP Carburetors for building some of the best carburetors out there and for helping us out in real life and stuff. And I want to thank Jake for letting me put his sponsor on the hood tonight.
That's Blaine Atkins. He brings it home second place here tonight in the All-Star race. He'll be looking to finish one position better next week when we get to the World 300 back here again at the Charlotte Motor Speedway. Congrats on a great run, Blaine.
Thank you.
Now let's go down to Victory Lane where Gerald Campbell is standing by. Hey, Gerald, it's Sam and Seth up here in the Flatout Racing Network studios. You got us?
Yes, sir, I do.
Well, my goodness. I mean, it was a wild race from start to finish, but let's focus on that finish because, my goodness, you had to go down there below the white line on the back straightaway to make that move work. Gracious. I mean, from a driver's standpoint, what was going through your mind, realizing the both of you were going to be having an awfully low entry going into turn 3?
I don't know what you guys are talking about. It wasn't that exciting, was it? Started first and finished first. It was just normal day, right? No, it was crazy. I didn't think I was going to make the turn. I thought when both of us went that far down low, it was going to see who's going to go all to the wall. He left me enough room. And, I didn't want to have to try to take it to the outside because whoever was going to take the outside was going to end up, well, as you saw, end up sliding up into the wall and everything. I tried not to go into them as best I could, but I also couldn't just slam on the brakes either, just for the mere fact that it's coming down at the end there, and you don't know how many times you're going to get a run like I did coming out of 2. It was just too good of a run to not try to throw something at them, and it worked somewhat. It worked for me, I guess. So just happy to actually pull it off and not come home with a wadded up car.
Well, we know that these cars are awfully loose when they go into the corner. We see the back ends kick around. Around the midway point of this race, we saw you decide to play a little bit of bumper cars with the 25 of Rocky Boyd in the center of the corner. I mean, I know there's $75 on the line, but what in the world were you doing there?
These are my favorite cars, so I feel very comfortable in them, even though they are completely out of control and completely for the crazy. But I was behind them, and I wanted to, save tires, but also finish the stages in first for the mere fact, because it's first. But it just came down to where it was just too hard. We had worn out our tires at the end of that run, and you had to almost force the guy to get off the bottom lane. So it wasn't hard enough bumps to really send him up the racetrack enough, but it also wasn't hard enough that I knew it wasn't going to turn them. These cars are a little bit more stable in the middle of the turns than a normal car does. But it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. I don't think anyone got too hard of feelings there, but it was still exciting.
Yeah, I mean, Gerald, congratulations on your win and getting the $75 for getting the win here today. But I mean, everyone's talking about how from learning from this race, it's all about tires. For you, is there any way to really save the tires when you're running so close to everyone else around you?
Oh yeah, I was saving tires for a few of those. You just let people go by. You just run your race. You brake early. You let off early. You let it coast. You get on the gas softer. That's no way to get up there and lead. It was pretty funny because in the beginning of the race, I was leading the race, and then all of a sudden someone blow by me and get in front of me, like with so much speed, obviously not saving tires. And then as soon as they got in front of me, is like they put on the brakes. I'm like, okay. It seemed like I was the benchmark that, all right, I got to get in front of the 31 and then I'm going to save my tires. And I just kept on. I'm like, I gotta find a point to stop them, because it was just starting to get to the point where I was getting too many people in front of me. And that was the constant battle was how many people do you let in front of you to save your tires, to how easy are you going to be able to pass them when you get back to going to top tier speed. And it played out really well in the second stage with me and the 3 car just leaving everybody and going out there, and it played out really well for that, saving enough tires. This one, I almost thought I saved too much and didn't have enough time to get up there with the 05, and then of course things worked out the way they did, and it put me right behind them. So I was kind of like rubbing my hands together like, yippee. I'm gonna actually get to use the tires. So it was just a bunch of a lot of chess and figuring out when to go and when to save them, essentially.
Gerald, we ended up seeing at the initial start of this race the double file restarts, everybody all bunched up nose to tail, 2 rows deep, which led to a lot of that great side-by-side racing. Then there was an audible called as we got closer to the end of this race with the single file restarts, and on that last one, everything just really stacked up. I mean, what was going on there in the point of view thinking, boy, am I going to be able to get myself a good enough jump to get up here with this 05, the way everyone's stacking up and all bumper to bumper?
It just stinks because you have to play out what you're going to do before the start. Am I gonna, because in this league you can be able to get underneath someone to the flag stand, and that's the key, is to get underneath or get to the outside, go side by side before you get to the flag stand so you can race it into the turn. Most leagues you have to stay single file or stay behind the person until you get to the flag stand. So as soon as the green flag goes, if you are even caught sleeping for a second, you're going to lose 3 or 4 spots. So it doesn't play out as much whenever it's 2 by 2, but whenever it's single file, you can see like my teammate Riggs, who just was killing people on those restarts, taking them to the outside and just passing them. I usually am pretty good, but people started predicting that I was going to cut it into the inside of them and end up losing my momentum, shuffling to the bottom, and the guys that had already preemptively thought they were going to go to the outside had nothing stopping them. So a couple of times I got past before we even got to turn 1 on the outside. So it was just again, I mean, with these cars, with how this race played out, it was really nuts as to exactly what was going to happen. With no caution laps counting, it was essentially, go as hard as you can, and hopefully there at the end you got a position that you wanted. So it was a lot of fun. It was crazy. I don't know if I would want to do that again tonight. I'm tired after having to think that hard. So I'll just take this win, and I guess $75. I didn't know how much money it was. I don't. I just enjoy racing these things, to be honest with you. These things are, again, like I said, just you really have to get on the steering wheel. When you have to do that, that's my type of racing. I like that.
Well, an unbelievable finish here tonight, and a well-deserved win, Gerald. A tremendous amount of momentum heading into the second half of this regular season as well, with the fact going into there with a victory already at North Wilkesboro. I mean, we're certainly expecting to see you be a mainstay up at the front of the field, but for tonight, we're going to let you do some shout-outs.
Yeah, appreciate it. I like to thank PRM, my team. Riggs is on my team, and stinks that he got into that wreck, so shout out to him. He should have probably gotten some shout outs today with the top 3, but unfortunately he got caught up with me in the 05. But shout out to Morris's whole group here. This is a lot of fun. Even though it's not full packed field, we put on a show like it always is. So really excited that you guys are broadcasting, because you guys do a fantastic job, and hopefully we always bring the excitement to a top tier level to be able to showcase us, showcase you guys, and hopefully showcase myself sometimes. So just proud of all that, and that's it. I hope hopefully I get to speak to you guys again, and hopefully I can keep this streak of running good here alive, and go on to the next one, and be a contender where you guys talk about me some more.
Absolutely. That's Gerald Campbell. He's your All-Star Race winner here in the Hijinx Clothing Company 87 Series. Congrats on a great run. Go enjoy your victory and go take a rest.
All right. Appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
And so after a lengthy all-star race here tonight, Gerald Campbell is the one that goes to victory lane, Sam. And, he talked about being exhausted. I'll bet there are a lot of other drivers that feel like they've been through about 200 laps here. But no, the 200 lapper's coming up next week.
Yeah, 200 laps here. I mean, we only saw 80 laps for that all-star race and 40 laps. And the other show match, I got to say, it's going to be a fun 200 laps to watch next week because, like everyone's been saying, it's all about the tire strategy and how you're able to save your tires, save fuel, and make it to the end.
Not only that, but in a lot of the races that we've had in the past couple of weeks, they've had multiple faster pairs at their disposal. Based on what we saw here tonight, they're probably going to need them for that 200 laps. So it's really going to, again, very much like it's been in the past, the strategic moves of when do you want to use those faster pairs.
Yeah, it's always interesting to watch when faster pairs are involved because usually they race aggressive in the first half, and then once faster pairs get used, they start to back off and try to be lenient until the final about 50 laps or so, where they crank it back up again.
Well, as we head into Wednesday here on the East Coast, we appreciate everyone that stuck it out. We hope you guys enjoyed tonight's showdown as well as the All-Star race here this evening. Samuel, as always, I appreciate you joining me in the booth for both races.
It's always a pleasure there, Seth.
And we hope you guys will tune in next week as the G4 Sim Racing Hijinx Clothing Company 87 Series will be back here at Charlotte for the 200-lap World 300 here at the Charlotte Motor Speedway. But for Samuel Dyer, I'm Seth Cole. Thanks for tuning in. Have a good evening here, courtesy of Flatout Racing Network. You've been watching another broadcast, and we'll see you guys next Tuesday night.